I will call this meeting to order. And, I mean, there's really no housekeeping. Reminders, restrooms over there, grab food if you want. Otherwise, I think we'll just jump back into it. Unless anyone has questions?
This document?
Yep. So I think we promised Director Birdie, he's number one. So, without any
Good
objections.
evening, everyone. I've got Director Sheets we're teaming up tonight. She's gonna run your slides.
Thank you, Bannon.
Well, I just have 2 slides, but they're really important. So the fact that they did 160 of them and I only did 2, don't worry about that. You know what we're looking at here is the intersection of First and Pearl up there at the school administrative site. And you know, that's smack dab between Main and Hudson, halfway in between, but the red is the property the school district owns. The green is the house that you recently approved the purchase of and that we took possession of just a week or 2 ago. And then the blue that's crossed out there, there's another rental unit there. So over to the right, those circles are just simply 2-mile circles. The bottom one is circled around our current public safety headquarters out by Fairway. The upper circle is a 2-mile circle around this site of First and Pearl. And we had a station, we did a station location study in 2015 that basically told us the same thing, but we paid somebody a few $1,000s to do it. But you can see, you know, for a city our size and our geographical limits on the size, you really can't you couldn't make 2 better locations that cover the majority of our citizens within 2 miles. And you can see even down the road for growth, going out University to the west or something would be the next conversation, long time from now. So anyway, the current fire station at 1718 Main is in the floodplain. You guys toured it just a month or 2 ago. It's went through several remodels. It was built in 1950s. Flooding, air quality issues. When they back those engines in now, they have about 2 inches of clearance on each side of the mirror. The trucks have gotten bigger through the years. The North Cedar Fire Station closed in 2012, and that's when they built that little fire station at South Main and Green Hill. If you remember, there was a little fire station there in conjunction with Mercy One that an ambulance ran out of. So we were looking to move our headquarters really up on First Street back in 2016, 17. It didn't work out. So we moved the headquarters out south, thinking, you know, we'll still try and build up here someday. So anyway, our 2 locations now are 18th and Main and South Main and Green Hill. And quite honestly, for the size of our city, that's a little too close together. We want to improve our, improve our service response time to North Cedar, to the Beaver Hills area, especially out to the western, you know, First and Union, getting out that way. So we've checked out other locations on First Street, and Stephanie will remember some of this, but the property under the state patrol, we own it, but it's in a lease forever. As long as the troopers are there, that's theirs. Some of the other businesses on First Street were approached about if they were interested in selling their property, and they were not interested. Ultimately, First and Hudson sold to Casey's, Sepchek's law firm. They sold those properties. But really, we're kind of back to the location we were at there. There was a plan for the school district to leave that location, but you know, that got complicated about 2 years ago when the Christian school moves in there, and now the school administration, they don't have immediate plans to leave. So like I said, we want to improve our service area and response times to the north. We want to move out of 1718 Main Street someday and then bury that building at 18th and Main. And so really the question of the conversation tonight is talking about property acquisition with that property at First and Pearl and just the path forward. And the subject matter experts on that are probably the mayor and Jen and Stephanie.
Well, one of the things I'd say is on the CIP right now, we don't show the public safety building being funded in the next 5 years. So right now it's on the CIP. What we do have on there is to spend a little money, whether we got to do a little more property acquisition yet or conceptual plans we have on there to just, you know, get those. So I think really the question probably is that what you want to see at this point, to have that at least on the CIP funded, to get those conceptual plans done, leave some funding in there for some other property acquisition. But again, knowing right now it's not on, now you could also say the opposite. I want to put it on sooner and I want to get it on and rebuild the CIP around that and figure that out. So I think that's the direction we're kind of looking for tonight is.
What's the, I'll cry out with special for you or for Chase, what's the potential impact when and if the 58 and Green Hill project ever gets started and Green Hill gets shut down on response times
Well, I think we've been told we'll always have, north and south access on 58. And so getting to the west side isn't really a concern because we can get up to Viking or go down to University.
Right.
So it would add some time for certain addresses, maybe if you're straight west of our building. But assuming you'd have to go a little bit north or south anyway, going down to University or.
But no
going up to
impact,
Viking.
no impact to the north.
Yeah.
At all.
And then we'll always, I think we're always planning on having north and south access on 58.
Into 50.
Yeah. Yep, so.
And you probably heard a little bit of this last year, the public safety building, the funding challenge with the public safety building, you know, as it doesn't really have its own funding source. So what we're probably using is, you know, whether we're trying to save up for it, some general fund savings. We can bond, but it's gonna be subject to those caps because it's a general purpose, a building, public safety building. Like fire trucks and equipment can be essential corporate, but a building itself is general corporate, so you're subject to that 935,000 cap. So as you can imagine, if you're thinking that the building's gonna cost 10 million, you know, that will be the challenge with the public safety building. Now, that doesn't mean we can't, it just means that's how we're reprioritizing, or where does it fit on the priority list? So.
I'd say the quick catch everyone up. I know some of us weren't here, the previous year, last year's conversation, we looked at a few big capital projects. Fire station, public safety building was one. The Hearst Center was another one. Potential new recreation facilities was kind of the third. Those were the three big capital projects in discussion. And we kind of talked through priorities on those. Hearst is kind of already moving. We were already at the point of having the building ready to look at doing the fundraising piece. They'd done the feasibility. So we did keep priority to let that project move forward. Recreation was one of the key areas that had the most support. So this was kind of, we know we need it at some point. It just wasn't the highest priority at the time. So we're still moving on it. And the update over this last year is the school is kind of on our timeline. Like they'll move out when they need to. They're comfortable in the building now, but they're also willing to say, okay, once we want to look at getting that process going, they need to find a new location. So they've kind of been just at high level, keeping an eye out on possible places they could lease, be in. Couple of years down the road, they will be looking at a new, probably, bus storage facility, for their transport. I should say transport facility. That maybe you build something out with that type of thing, but they're really kind of said they're on our timeline of whenever we look to move forward with it. So our thought was what we would see this next year would be still looking at those other nearby properties, make sure we're planning ahead, but then just continuing to work with the school and maybe trying to see where things are playing out as they maybe find other locations. But they're really just kind of waiting to see when we decide to look at pushing something. And we haven't gotten to the point of talking about an amount with them for the property. So that could be something we talk with them on maybe more this year, just so we have some numbers as if and when we get to that point, maybe what they look for. So we can have some specifics, but
Sorry, go ahead.
Are they, I know they have some other priorities in terms of buildings as well. Are they really just like, whenever you tell us, and are we like working a deal? Like, are we saying, okay, we give you a spot like out in the industrial park and we'll just move when we have the funding? Or is it all on their radar?
still be discussed. TBD. We haven't really talked to them directly about trading land out or anything for industrial park land or anything like that, but. So because there's nothing solid on their end for plans,
Got it.
so there's just, at this point, it's all just been working conversation.
I guess I would think if they're looking at, a new potential transportation depot or whatever you want to call it for busing. If we could look at property out there in industrial park for both of those things, I would think there'd be something we could maybe work out there. I know we don't want to talk about that on record, but, I guess I would also just say we gave them quite a bit of money towards the pool, which I get there's some mutual use there, but I would hope that that's remembered when the time comes.
Conceptually is, what's the footprint? Is that, get that blue piece, of that kind of what you think you need, or is there more acquisition beyond that?
I think if we were able to get that, we probably want to get that rental up in the corner, which really shouldn't be very cost prohibitive. I don't know what the assessed value is, but probably in the low 200s or something. And then if we could vacate, Earl Street there, we'd have a whole city block, 330 feet by 300, plenty big.
Okay.
And I would imagine it would be a public safety facility, so you could still, we'd want to be able to have people go there, report a crime. The police would also work out of the building. It'd just be a smaller fire station. And then if Sartori would ever move, build a new facility, I think then we would probably forever run an ambulance out of this building too. Because then there are other right now we have an ambulance with us down in South Main. If there was a new hospital of Main and Green Hill, I think that ambulance would go over to the hospital.
Yes.
But then this facility would probably always have a Mercy One rig running out of it.
So Craig, just be clear, we haven't done anything proactive in terms of reaching out to that
No,
property. We only just purchased the other one because it happened to go
Yeah.
for sale.
the other one just happened to be for sale and it was purchased for under 150,000.
Oh, that could be some other potential direction. And,
Yep.
yeah.
One
Wanted
thing,
us to actively.
I didn't cover it here, but one thing we were planning to is we would put some significant classrooms and training space in there that could be used by City Hall and other staff too, when they have a closer location. Right now, it seems like whenever we need big space, we want Public Works, and so we would do some things there.
And do you know in the CIP when we had some money budgeted for the design piece of it?
In fiscal 29 is what we're
Right.
proposing, the new CIP.
Knowing that we said like, thinking like you were saying earlier, it was kind of third of the priority. I mean, it was the Hearst and then rec and public safety.
Yeah.
So.
So partly looking to you guys for that feedback on, is that too late? Should we be trying to get that done sooner?
I have another
Um,
question. Do we know what's happening with the development out in North Cedar that they like broke ground not all that long ago? Are they building houses?
Sands?
Yeah.
Property? Yeah, they just got the road infrastructure in pretty much. And I don't think they've broken ground in houses yet. They're just getting the infrastructure in place.
Do we know how many houses that is?
I think it was
30.
about 30.
Yeah. I think about
And it
that.
won't, no houses will start until sometime next spring or summer.
Okay.
Because they did not finish the infrastructure, so they don't want to bond for it, so they're just waiting for spring.
Okay. So that, I would say that 29 seems reasonable.
I kind of feel like it makes me a little uneasy to not, or maybe a little more priority, so. North Cedar Fire Station hasn't been active since 2012.
No, or it's not regular to staff. since-
Right, so 13 years now. I don't know, I mean, maybe a little more priority to it would, because right now it feels like, I mean, I'm not saying obviously there are things in place, but to me, it's very important that, the area where it goes is highly critical. So I hope that we secure the spot that's important for the place to go. To me, that's like, it makes me feel uneasy that that's kind of still up in the air, you know?
So you're suggesting more priority on the property acquisition side?
Well, we can't do anything without acquiring the
Understood,
property, right?
I tend to agree. I think when you think about all the development that's going on out west on 12th and out First Street out there, I think we're actually a little behind in making sure that we have the coverage for the city. So I think we need to fast track. We need to talk with the city, or not the city, but the school district, and get serious about it and let them know that we're serious about trying to do a timeline. And then maybe after those initial discussions, we have it budgeted for 29
To do the conceptual plans and the land acquisition.
and land act.
Land
Yeah.
acquisition was actually fiscal
20.
31.
Oh.
Later.
Oh, okay.
So it's schematic design and then 2
Schematic,
years later.
Think
was
about what we need
plan.
and then do a little bit more design and then purchase when we're ready to do construction drawings.
Boy,
I'm not sure that.
Greg, how long did it take to build your building?
I think our current one, maybe 15, 18 months.
Uh-huh.
So it's gonna say,
I mean,
You're,
at that point, you're a decade out.
And the 18th station is like, I mean, it was fine. I loved our tour, but like,
vintage.
it's not getting a lot of love, right?
Yeah. We're not putting any money in this building. We have quite wide.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
You'll find it.
Throwing good money back.
Craig, did you have some?
How much, you said that part of this was purchased already?
The city, we just bought that green, the house in the green,
Oh, okay,
and just the city council just did that within last month, and we just took possession of it last week. So the only thing, so then there's one rental property and a garage left in that blue crossed out area.
Mhm.
And then the school district has everything in the red.
why would you not want that crossed out here?
Well, I think we would want it. It was just trying to depict them differently on the picture.
The, yeah, the green didn't happen to come for sale, so. we-
Yeah, oh, okay. Sounds good. No, I'm just looking at it from,
I think that if
Agree.
don't let it go.
if we did get something worked out, and let's say we were heading more in the direction of conceptual plans and things, that property in the blue could always come last, you know?
Let's say one of my thoughts was that I feel like, how much, right, say that, how much were the CIP items for the design? Like, how much would it cost to get going on that?
Well, in fiscal 29 schematic design, we put it at 112,000. The way we came to the design overall, 800,000 is 8% of a $10 million project. So our fees are usually 7 to 9 to sometimes 10%.
Yeah. Would it be premature to design it until we know for sure if we're gonna have the whole?
Well, schematic will tell you a little bit about what your layout needs to be. Your program areas, your offices, your, your garage area, your meeting room, whatever. It'll lay that out. You'll see what works on the site and what is access and that type of thing. That's what schematic will do.
Question, would it make sense to try to get an option out of the people? Just log it down until we get all that put together?
That was kind of my thinking is maybe do we wanna, hearing some of the conversation, do we wanna maybe look at moving ahead, the planning piece of the design? Maybe try to talk to those property owners proactively and get an option on purchasing the lot, knowing it's not happening right now, but get an option for a few years. And then,
Think that property is worth?
I could tell you, but you could find it if you get to it.
Nobody pays for that. No.
Hey, like 149. That's a pretty simple house. The other one is a duplex, right, built 70s or something.
So it's not hugely expensive, to add to the budget. But I mean, I think if we're gonna move. I guess I would have some concerns about moving 10 million up.
oh yeah, this would just be at this point, just talking about design costs, not the whole thing. But if we just wanted to get some early design work done,
Is
But-
that worth it to have it that premature of the actual?
my feeling is on one hand, it does help show we're more serious about it, so it can help us move some conversations probably with the school district forward. If we say we're starting to work on designs, we look at an option on that property.
Yeah.
And we could use this next year to try and get a more solid timeline in place of what that looks like. And we very high level talk to them about like the transportation center and things, but we could maybe get a little more in detail with them on where they're at with that. And try to see if it makes sense to start the first phase of some of the design.
I think to me also, in my mind, sorry if I cut anybody off, it's relative also to me, like, this is a need to me. Where other things, although they're very much wanted, like, I would hate for this to be put behind something when I think that this is a need for the safety of our community. So I guess right now in the conversation, it's always, when we're kind of talking about stuff, when you line them all up and you're like, I don't think we should do that before that. So we haven't got that far in this process
Yeah.
tonight. But I think this is incredibly important and, I don't think it should get put behind much,
Yeah.
if anything.
The adage of we can do anything, we can't do everything. I think I identified this as one of my priorities too. I'd like to see some funds dedicated to this sooner than later. And I think, again, being proactive, probably conversations separately with the school district and then look at acquisition. I think makes a lot of sense.
So is it like pull it up to 27 for schematic stuff or sooner than that?
Well, I guess this coming year would be fiscal year 27,
Now,
because the fiscal year is always the year we end up in, so. But I would think maybe then, and we'll typically take all this input and we'll look at the CIP and moving stuff around, but I think just from what I'm hearing, maybe looking at kicking off some of that design process. If it seems to make sense here in this next,
Because we had about $1 million in there for design, and that's what you're saying, Stephanie, right?
do you do all that design at once or? is there-
No, we do the schematic first, like she mentioned,
Yeah.
that 112, the schematic part.
Well, we need to have a serious conversation with the school.
Yeah.
That's free. That's free.
The conversation's great.
You only need a $1
Schematic.
warranty, so.
So I think that there's potentially schematic, design and land acquisition up a little bit. Right, so we would know more and discussions with the school, serious discussions with the school.
That's really, we're only effectively
We're not actually doing anything, yeah.
moving up 1 year at the end of the day. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. To the extent that's fast tracking.
I agree with that, do that before we have to do the, make sure you have the ground first. Have those conversations before you start. Put the lines on the paper because it's better to read it.
Okay.
So moving those three things up 1 year. I got
Ish.
I don't think we set a year on it. We'll see
Yeah.
what seems to make sense and
Okay.
moving it probably assume it's
it.
makes sense to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Heck of a slide, Greg.
I know.
That's great.
Two slides.
Two slides, oh, sorry.
Move on. Let's just move on.
Now to spend the next 5 hours
Yeah,
with Stephanie.
that sounds great. All right, yes, as the mayor said, slide 64 through 96, I will be speaking with you and probably on from there, so you'll have me for a little bit here. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things, recreation, cultural and tourism related, and that's all kind of get lumped in. So at a high level, that's this list here, but then we're gonna walk through it a little bit more, just step through that a little bit, I guess. So the first one is gonna talk a little bit about facilities. Last year at council goal setting, started to have a little bit of discussion about the rec center more seriously about, yeah, maybe that should move off the unfunded list. Maybe we should be thinking about a timeline, but what should we be thinking about? Should we continue as it is? Should we expand at the current site? Should we do something new at the site? Should we do something totally new at a different site? So those were questions that were raised at the last, goal setting and, still stand as questions today. Also in the mix then is a sports tourism complex and then some conversations that have been happening around multi-use athletic fields. So while those are some of the topics out there related to facilities, I'm going to walk through those in a little bit different order. It doesn't mean that this order is order of priority at all. It just kind of seemed that maybe it lays out a little bit better to go through it in this order. And we'll pause for conversation, and then at the end, I'll have, again, these three to ask a little bit about council direction on next steps that we're recommending. So we talked last year at goal setting that our tourism division wanted to move forward with doing a tourism destination assessment. Council said yes to that, and we moved forward and did that. We explained the purpose of that would be to take a look at our tourism assets, what venues we have, sports facilities that we have, attractions, outdoor recreation, kind of look at it all. Gather some stakeholder input on our future opportunities and talk with some of the organizations in our community and think about data related to, along with the stakeholder input, think about what is our opportunity tourism related to continue to attract people here. We see that there are a lot of communities doing a lot of things. And one intentional question was, do we want to be competing with that and doing the same thing? Or do we want to find a niche of something different? Because sports arena, as my managers back here can tell you, is way, way, way competitive. And perhaps you all know this already as well. So those were the questions that we tasked a consultant with. And they were also integrating some insights from the statewide organization, the Iowa Travel Industry Partners, who did a 2024 study on Iowa sports market. It did an analysis about that. So we were able to kind of look at all of that. And so that study was completed in October of this year. And the primary recommendations out of that were that we should be exploring a tourism-driven indoor artificial turf facility that is a full-size football or soccer field that would have permanent seating with it, significant being somewhere around 2,000 to 3,000 permanent seats. And that is something that you will not find anywhere close to us and could be a niche for us. We see some local demand about that already. And we know that through our reaching out, Adam Bolander, talking with different organizations and sports interest, knows that there's opportunity to program. So it would be a visitor-led type of facility for the weekends and then could be available for local use throughout the week. And it's pretty common that facilities operate that way. There were some other recommendations about supporting enhancement to existing facilities, which we know, which I'll get into a little bit more on some of our other facilities around the city. And then just in terms of creating a culture of sport and event development is making sure that we're having regular conversations with our partners, which our tourism folks do. But there were some topics of conversation that it recommended having in the study. And I'm trying to build more partnerships, which also feeds into that first item a little bit. So with that, in order to move forward, staff's recommendation is that we work on a conceptual site plan for what a site might look like with a building, parking lot, what a potential location might be for this and layout of that, so that we can use that in talking to try to recruit interest. So we've already, a couple of the items that I have on this slide, we've talked with some local organizations about level of interest. We think going back with something with a illustration with a drawing can, oh, this is real. This might actually be of interest. We can start talking about that a little bit more. We started last week and we will this week be touring a couple other tournament facilities or what other communities have done. Talking to others is an important step. And then also reaching out to meet with some developers. There are private developers that do this. They need to see the local interest too. So we kind of have to work on a variety of fronts in order to potentially move this forward. And one thing that we can then be thinking about is, well, then how do we build on that once we have that? Because there's interest in doing a lot of other things too. And so once you have one success, then you can build from there. So a later slide, like I said, will ask about all three of the topics I'm talking about right now, but any questions that I should pause for, any discussion about the tourism, indoor tourism facility?
Where have you looked at?
We went to Burlington last week and we're going to West Des Moines this week. And of course, there are many other options too.
You go into the Recplex down there, West Des Moines.
Yes. We're going to the reference. She arranged it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, my kids don't do indoor soccer, but no, Tom's.
Yeah, I have two things. One, Recplex, we did a ton of signs down there back in the day, so super familiar with the facility. And they're actually in the process of expanding. They started up with 2 ice rinks and now they're adding a third. Which part of the thing was there for hockey, when you try to do tournaments, most people only have 1 rink and it screws things up. So they started with 2, now they're going to 3. Which begs the question of, if you're doing indoor turf, is 1 enough?
You can always do more if you can afford it.
But I mean, if you're really trying to drive that tourism piece, normally a tournament type of situation in one field doesn't get you a tournament.
Yeah, it's like, we used to do volleyball, and the facility would have 8 courts in it.
Yeah.
I take your point.
Not saying it's bad, good, bad, or otherwise, but just what I observe, normally they do these outside, most of the indoor stuff is smaller fields and they even do stuff at the Sportsplex. They do stuff down in Iowa City, at one of the university's practice facilities. And then, down at TPK, down at Davenport, they've got indoor. stuff as well. Recplex has a indoor soccer field, so it would be good to talk to them about, hey, how does that indoor field play into your that type of a thing? Outdoor, they've got 3 multi-purpose fields at the Recplex.
We didn't put a location slide up here, but the spot that we're thinking about that I'd really like to test out is the Gibson property on the west side of Hudson Road. Right there on Highway 20, right down the road from the soccer complex, near hotels, and potentially maybe expands to the west if we get lucky.
Any clarifying questions right now? Because we'll circle back to talk about priorities and all that stuff, but.
I don't, I don't have enough information, but isn't this what Florida's doing now? Just they announce that
They're doing a hard court.
They're doing a hardcore
Hardcore.
facility, so basketball courts and.
Yeah, good question.
And so we have talked about all these things coming up, talked with the regional sports tourism group, but also Mayor Hart. I've run these all by them just to make sure what we're doing is not duplicated off of anything what they've got.
Okay. Before getting into talking about the multi-use athletic fields and the rec, I thought it might be helpful, and Mayor and I talked about showing just how the next 2 projects fit into recommendations from the Parks Master Plan. And I'll talk about the Parks Master Plan implementation in some later slides. We're starting with some of these more facility type of things. But this is just kind of a snapshot of the 6 items that are on in the Parks Master Plan as big ideas, and the Recreation Center in terms of continuing to seek funding and prioritizing it is listed there and in the plan, as well as an athletic complex that would be capable of hosting tournaments for organized sports and increasing the amount of multi-use fields that we have available. So with those in mind, I'll move on to the next 2 parts of this, the 3 facility discussion. And the next one is talking about some type of outdoor complex, multi-use athletic fields. The Parks Master Plan says we need to increase the amount of multi-use field space that we have available. By making it multi-use, you can serve a lot of different uses, as I have up on the slide there. The question is, what should it be? How big should it be? Where should it be? What type of surface should it be? Who can partner with us on it? And so knowing that we have all those questions, also, what is the cost going to be, and how will that, moving forward, how will that be maintained and supported? With all of those questions, staff's recommendation at this point would be that we do some type of feasibility study surrounding that, so that we can answer some of those questions and get some community engagement about this particular type of project.
I can give some more background. We did have an organization who does these fields, so it's actually the one that built and owns Fairway Fields, and operates it. Iowa Sports, they're called, they're owned by Musco Lighting. Have a connection through local developer that came up. We talked to them about how these fields get put together. Because virtually all of these facilities around the state are not owned and run by the city. They're all public-private partnerships. The city probably helps fund it with incentives, TIF, or just upfront cash support. But then usually they're operated by a private entity that comes in, they do the tournament scheduling, and then it's just a long-term lease. It might be through a nonprofit organization who holds the land and leases it. Then sometimes they'll have an option that after 10 years, it goes to the city type of thing. So this would not just be something the city builds, pays for, and operates. Like, this would be a public-private partnership. We'd want to start bringing in private partners. We've got quite a few locally that I've already talked to. And I've been talking with Jim Miller, who runs Warley Development Corp., who's doing the Courtworks project, on how they've done the fundraising, the partnerships. And this is one that would be a very strong public-private partnership project, not just us trying to fund and develop the whole project. I don't know.
Would that regional group come in and help us with that some too, Danny, do you think, right now?
What was that?
You know, the regional sports group, the Ashley's group, do they partner with us and kind of helping us get this off the ground, or is this truly, we gotta find the support?
They wouldn't really
What
help
mechanism?
with coordinating that. She manages like sports, tourism,
Okay,
things coming to town. This would be more, well, one, that's what, so just to give an example of what Warley Development Corp has done for Courtworks. they led that project. So they were the ones that pulled in private developers. They got contracts for feasibility studies. It wasn't the city that led it. It was them as a group with strong support and partnership with the city. Jim Miller there has been leading the whole thing, doing it as an unpaid volunteer, which I don't think was his original plan when they jumped into that. But this would be the type of thing where we want to find private people willing to take lead on fundraising for generating partnerships. And really the city's main role is usually to just say, we're willing to back this and put some resources toward it. And so this is one that I think there's a lot of local traction on, wanting to get some partnerships going, conversations started sooner than later.
And then the next topic then among the three facility discussion would be about the rec center. Again, the questions that we had at last goal setting, and the request was that we provide a committee presentation to talk about options. And as we were preparing that, which was going to be kind of late in the year here, then it just started to kind of make sense to just do it at goal setting. So that's where we're at with this. I think last goal setting, we might have shown this slide as well, reminding folks that we had a 2019 study that looked at trends and future considerations, noting that the location of the rec is really something to think hard and long about, that it's a good location, that expansion, if possible, would make sense there. But we know that at this point, we have that question. Should it be there? Should it be somewhere else? What should we do? In terms of what we should do, the 2019 study did have a recommendation about essentially needing to double the size of the facility. Here is a little bit of a list of items that either were noted for expansion or something that would be totally new. And there's a little bit more in the list. I just tried to grab a kind of the expand or new items. I also thought it would be helpful to show that we have made some changes since 2019. The locker rooms was the first project that came out of that, a total remodel of the locker rooms. And then the spin cycle studio moved from downstairs up into what used to be the activity room, where now they have some light and they have maybe double or maybe triple the size. An activity room moved into one of the racquetball courts, which I'm glad Gil's not here. He'd be mad about that. There's still one left. He still gets to play racquetball. So we made those adjustments. It seems to be going well. And also then the community natatorium was built. So a pool is available. So also in that study, then we looked at, it's kind of light in the slide, but hopefully you can see kind of the blue outline of all the property that the city owns currently. And so the question was, could we even expand there? And so this is just a very, very high level illustration that says, well, basically, if you have to double the size, you could probably fit the building. It doesn't look at the layout. It doesn't look at our operational issues. Would the track actually work to double the size by just, doing what that shows? That's where we need to get what realistically works either for this site, or if council says a different site makes better sense, then that's what we do. So this kind of showed that whether it's with the land that we own or maybe with a little bit more acquisition, this site might still be feasible, but we'd really have to look at it a little bit more closely. What are some of the opportunities that we need to think about? Well, we should think about gym space. How many courts do we think are appropriate at a community facility? Or do we want to do more than being a community facility? So those are the questions. Essentially, I guess the base would be the 2019 study said we should double our gym space. That's maybe a minimum to start at. Other opportunities would be the walking track. We've had a lot of comments about that. The base, if we use the base of the study again, it says to double the size of that, and make that a little bit, it's more sloped. I don't actually walk the track, but Mike is here. He could tell you the comments that he gets about it. But that could be a real improvement that people would really appreciate. Another idea that's shown here, we do an indoor park in the gyms on Tuesday, Thursday mornings. It's pretty popular, especially when it's cold out. We do that in the winter. Perhaps we should think about whether it's with this facility or something else, maybe having a year-round indoor playground. That's probably not anything that we have anywhere close to us, and maybe that could be a niche for us. So those might be some things to consider with the indoor spaces. We might want to think about some additional opportunities. If we were to go somewhere new, some new ideas that we can think about are sports like sand volleyball, and trying to provide more opportunities for that, or other outdoor sports. Splash pad is something that came out of the Parks Master Plan. Maybe it's a location where we could think about that. We'll talk about the splash pad a little bit more when we talk about the Parks Master Plan implementation. But these might be other creative ideas that we can think about around this facility. I do think that it's important to mention a little bit about what we see in terms of expenses and revenues with the rec division, because of course, if you're talking about expanding a facility, we need to think about how the dollars and the cents work. This graph shows overall the recreation division, so it's not just the rec center itself. It's the falls, it's the youth programming, and the blue line is what we receive in direct revenues, and the orangish line is expenditures. So we do see that, not unlike many of our divisions and departments, there is some support from general revenue that helps the rec do what the rec does and provide those services to the public. And so you can imagine that I'm going to call it gap, but that's maybe not a great word, might increase if we have a larger facility. Might we be able to increase fees? Sure, we can look at that. You need to keep it affordable, so you always have that balance of how you might, if you increase too much, you lose people. Or because you have a new facility, you gain people at the same rate, so your revenue goes up anyway. So all of those different things to consider. But it just at least wanted to show a little bit about what's happening financially in the rec division.
Stephanie,
Yeah.
what are the fees to rec center currently? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I have it here, but I believe, and Mike can jump in, I think it's for an annual resident fee, I believe it's like 240. Am I right, Mike?
For a family?
Family? Yeah,
And I think it's
260, sorry, 260.
175 for a single.
Yeah, adult annual membership is 175.
Yeah. So I
That's
think
lower than anything else they surveyed.
yeah, because I will say that is one area I think we have a chance to look at is. Well, I just, and this is off the cuff, this is not official data collection, and I haven't talked to a statistically sizable sample size. But I just recently talked to a few people, 15, 20, just off the cuff. My thought has always been, we are very low cost, I think an annual membership right now, the fit is $600. It's about 50 a month for, I think, individual. So we have a lot of room between what we charge and what other facilities charge. As we've talked a lot about this, so we don't want to compete with the private market. No. We will always be kind of the lower cost option. You're not looking for the highest amenities. But I do think, feeling I get from talking to people is people are willing to pay a little more if that amenity is there. So I think we've got room to look at what are we providing and what pay amount. We do want to make sure it's the option that's affordable to the community. But I think we've got room to look at that business model of, can we offer better services for a little bit higher price? So I think we got a lot of room there to kind of look at what we're offering and also targeting for.
Is this gap normal? Is that like most city facilities?
Yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable, where we're at, there's some programs that make money and other programs that either break even or lose a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, it's not unusual to find this.
Does Waterloo own the sports complex? Their family rate for a year is 9.
Do they own
When
it? I thought there was a
we
question.
did a survey, the family
They do
rate was
now.
850.
925, well,
925.
850, sorry, family plus is 825, that's child percent, so 850. We're at 260.
I
Did they
think
run it though?
when it was originally built, and maybe Mike, someone correct me, it was originally built, it was separately operated, or it was owned off separately. But then the ownership transitioned after 10 years to the city.
The Sportsplex,
Yeah, do you remember?
the city owns it, it's run by,
Yeah. And originally, WDC owned the building for a while until a certain point, and then it transitioned to the city. But it's not a purely city.
So
Right.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Yeah, what-
The city owns it, but somebody else operates it.
correct,
So somebody else probably sets the fees.
correct.
I understand we're having just like a high level conversation, but I think the key factor for me is it needs to, I think I'm hearing this. It's important to me that it remains affordable for
Yeah.
as many folks
Agreed.
as possible in the
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
And also, it's not just like, there's non-citizen, even the non-citizen. Because some people come to town to work and they sneak over on their lunch break,
That was the
whatever,
non-resident rate.
right?
Yeah,
If they work in Cedar Falls, you give them a rate that's similar to a resident,
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
I appreciated that when I wasn't a,
worker rate call.
so, I guess where we were, landing was we would like tonight some council feedback about thoughts on purpose of the facility, because if we know what the purpose is, then we understand how we approach A through C about expansion at current site or facility or new facility or new recreation complex somewhere else. What do council members feel the purpose of our rec center is, for us to be thinking about what our next steps should be, how we should approach those?
It's a community wellness center.
for me, the location that we have right now is like, to me, that it is just about perfect. But it's accessible to, like, wherever you are.
Where the circles overlap.
Right, it's kind of like Craig's Circles, it's in the middle, right?
Don't give that site to Craig.
If you're talking to me, I'll take it.
So we gotta decide, are we,
I think
Birdie?
we say Birdie.
Yeah, we better.
Birdie.
Let's go Birdie.
I will say my thought on the existing site is it's perfect location. I don't think we can feasibly expand there. Because when you looked at that expansion drawing, you're only ending up with about the same amount of parking as what exists now with a twice as large building. And that parking lot's already packed every single night. And I don't think there's any feasible way to really expand that facility and have that parking.
I know we talked about this before. What does it look like to have like the facilities kind of spread out? Is that just like completely out of the question due to staffing? Like, could we maintain this rec center like in some capacity as it is now? And then like, if we're building a turf complex, then we also have like a community weight room or something like, or is that just not possible because of staff?
Yeah, when you have 2 or 3 locations, then you do need to think about the staffing, but there are, you probably know that there's facilities that don't have anybody monitoring them. So maybe based on the type of use that you offer, if it's just a track to walk, people can't damage that. So if that's what uses a lot of space, well, maybe that can go somewhere else. I'm just picking on that as an example. Weights, you see places that do that. We tend to see people not totally respect our stuff. So I wouldn't want to do that without some type of monitoring.
There are, so to use that, the Fairway Fields example that was up there, what they did, so that's privately operated. City helped fund it, but private operation owned. What they did was they did build on a city-owned court space, kind of gym space. And what they did is they partnered to overlap the parking, so they were able to build less overall parking in total because they share the parking and they've got slightly different hours of peak usage. So they were able to build in some economies of scale. And so that was a good example in my mind of, so you've got that facility and then the city was able to add something on that, one, brings traffic to the area. Because you start to get that campus feel of multiple athletic options. but then it helped the city reduce some of their costs and their parking needs. So in terms of your question, maybe,
Just, I think the thing that pains me is that, you know, it's like we get into this, all the same things all in one place. And, you know, then it's like, okay, that doesn't allow for accessibility, you know, it's like, okay, if it's out in the industrial park, no one can walk there. Like, maybe you could ride your bike depending on your physical abilities, but, you know, it's like, if you have, like, where this location is now, there's a huge number of people that can walk there. You know, and it's like, if, I know we've talked about, which kind of disappeared, but like the co-op, you know, it's like, if you have those mixed uses, I think that's better for building neighborhoods and building community, and so I would hate to see this go away from that space.
But I agree, actually, but I love the goal of having all those other things. But, I agree, like, it's. To me, that in my mind, they're kind of two, like, it is a community wellness center. And then like. The expansion of the courts and the walking track and all those things. In a perfect world of getting what you want, that could be a whole different. Facility that could have all the parking in the world or whatever, you know, I like it, cause if you did many courts, like if we did more than the minimum. Then I assume that maybe that could be a space for. Maybe some possible tournaments or, I don't know, some kind of a,
Basketball tournaments,
Yeah.
whatever.
I'm gonna tell you, I think we're gonna, I think we should. I think it's two separate things, because I think that port project in Waterloo is gonna draw those tournaments there. We're not gonna get basketball tournaments in Cedar Falls. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest, maybe between what, even if we did that there. I think about the basketball tournaments that my kids play in right now, it seldomly, if ever, is in a community rec center. And if it is, it's, I mean, Chase, you'd attest to this, it's the satellite location when they run out of space. You know, the WRC's got umpteen different courts, and it's not really well equipped for tournaments, but it's used. So I think the tournament space as far as courts go, I think is already gonna be oversaturated once the courts project opens in Waterloo. While I'd love to see additional courts here at the rec center, I don't think we need to look at 8 courts. I mean, Mike, would you, not to put you on the spot, but am I off base on that?
It depends on what you want to do. So if you want to host tournaments, you're gonna need. Would it turn into just a tournament center? That would be how you want to run it. I mean, you just host as many as you want. If you want it open to the public 2 weekends a year and tournaments the other 2 weekends a year, or maybe smaller tournaments can go in there, use 4 courts, the public could use the other 4 courts. You'd have the option to run it however you wanted to handle.
Yeah.
I'd say one thing we did talk about, and we went back and forth on some of the same thing, is to fund something like that, like you don't fund 8 courts without having significant donor dollars. And there's no way we're raising any money to build 8 courts when Courtplex is currently still fundraising. So even if we wanted to, I don't think it's feasible to ever build 8 courts. I think we're building for a local rec use that might get some of those spillovers. If we had a nice 4-court facility for local rec stuff and they have an overflow from that they need some additional space for. I mean, I do think, to Mike's point, if you build courts, they will get used. But I also don't know how we would feasibly afford a facility that large.
Well, I think you're drawing from the same pool. If we're talking about a turf facility and this, you're drawing from those same dollars for looking at fundraising. I know where I would prioritize. You're coming to me for a donation. I know where I prioritize mine in the process.
So are you saying don't expand in the way that the study recommends and keep the location, or you're saying do the expansion, but it's not gonna fit in that space? Cause like it recommended 8 courts, but now we're kind of saying, well, do we
The
need?
study did not recommend 8 courts.
What did the study recommend?
Study recommend doubling the size of what we've got.
Which we currently only got 2.
So
We have 2 full courts there. And where I think we're lacking in the base, frankly, is the weight and the cardio space is really small.
there's a number of people that use it, and I think that, and I'll speak for myself, that kind of detracts my want to go there just because fighting, so. It makes it easier to go somewhere else, but that's what I envision for an expansion.
The weight room, which is also where all the equipment is,
Yeah.
that gets, is that way like too small or
Way too
what?
small.
Yeah.
And that came up in 2019 and 2010 when they did a study before that, and it's just too small, and we don't get, like, when you see the revenue chart, we don't get people there because they don't wanna come and wait.
Right.
They don't wanna work out next to someone a foot away.
Right.
Because we got everything.
It's uncomfortable, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then like the sauna thing, was that too small too? I feel like we mentioned that.
Yeah, the sound is small, and it's unbelievable how many people use that in a day. It'll blow your mind if you sat there with liquor. Because that's the only one around, and the steam rooms are the only one around. But the gyms are tough. And to me, we're basing that on a study that's done already 6 years ago.
Mhm.
Since 2019, youth sports has gone up in the country 46%. It's just taken off like gangbusters. It's huge. And the revenue from it is what we're missing. And I know we want to be a community wellness. That's what I want. I think having it big enough to draw a couple tournaments in helps our community pay for it. I'd rather get out of towners to help us pay for it. But keep it a community center. I want a place for our kids to go and be able to play basketball or volleyball or stuff like that, here locally. And I know there's other surrounding communities that have nice facilities. And those nice facilities, they're expanding. Everywhere you look, they're expanding. Sportsplex isn't that old, it's expanding. The Rexplex in Des Moines, it's not that old, it's expanding. The best one I've ever been to is in Wisconsin. It's 5 years old, it has 8 courts, it's expanding. It's just taken off, and I personally, I feel we're way behind. And I know this is a tough deal, and it's been kicked around for years and years and years, because it's tough.
Yeah.
It's hard.
And this is, I think, tough, not tough in the political sense, tough in the financial sense, because really, this isn't the type of place you just pay for with tax dollars. It is, you have to use proper taxes to fund some of it, but you also have to build a business model and operational revenue. So I just saw one, and this is, don't compare this to us, it's a whole different scale. This is out in Indianapolis Metro. It's a small suburb, about our size of town, but in the middle of a huge metro. But they just built a huge new $60 million facility. But they have so much growth. Their membership rate, I think, is $1,500 a year. And they're paying for the whole thing through memberships. They're bonding for it to pay up front, but they're expecting to pay the entire debt levy based on the revenue generated. So that's where it's not just that we would have to bond and borrow to pay for the whole thing. We also have to look at the operational model and how much do we make from memberships? Do we see a whole bunch of new memberships that we can now raise the rate a little bit because we're way under the market? Because we have new facilities, we've got new equipment. So this is one where I think there is a huge need and a huge opportunity. A little more complex because you're building out the business model for how it sustains itself beyond just the property taxes to support it. But I do think there's a huge need for it. Just speaking, just in the local rec side even, beyond tournaments. There's a lot, 'cause I think right now, like all of our leagues, volleyball and everything are at the school gyms, which we are paying to rent those spaces, and they're not optimal facilities for those things, and
Yeah, and
On the other hand, we get a good deal.
yeah,
We'd be paying a lot more to provide that type of space.
Yeah, and then, it's great the school partners keep us on it, but if there's a chorus concert or a band concert or something that comes up, our leagues get kicked to the contingent side, which is tough. And that's a small aspect of it. Just as an example, Shields just built a sports park in Springfield, Illinois, which has 6 basketball courts. Indoor turf field, which is 350 feet by 280, which is 2 softball fields, if you think about it. Outdoor, they have 8 multi-purpose lighted fields and a 27,000 square foot event center. And in their first year of operations in Springfield, they got 250,000 new visitors to town, which was 50,000 hotel stays, generated 25 million in revenue to the community.
So is that though, like, just, like, is that like where people are going to like work out and lift weights, or is it just? Because they could, to me, it's kind of like, are they two different things? Are we sending people who want to go do the activities
If
to a
we're
different
talking
place?
about visitors, we had the sports tourism destination stuff
Sure,
that said what
sure,
we should do.
yeah,
That's why I'm thinking, courts, there should be a way, if we had an indoor facility that had a soccer field. If we do multi-use, there is a way to bring in courts, right? And set them up on the field, there is a way to do that.
Correct.
Yeah, so, I obviously won't do that sort of thing, but I'm kind of with Kelly, that I see this as the wellness place where you have a couple of courts and a bigger weight room and cardio, and then if we do a separate facility, that also, maybe it's a public-private partnership down the road, and we wash our hands of it, and it generates revenue, great. We have those courts, and we have access to it too for our clubs and whatever, but yeah, I think if we're trying to expand the rec center and then also have 8 courts in it or whatever, well, obviously it's moving from there, and that's it seems like we're mixing the uses a bit.
Is there a way for a community-focused rec center to be profitable?
You mean have no subsidy from like the chart that I showed, or what do you mean profitable?
Yeah, just theorize.
So it's about a 900,000 that it's supported right now by property taxes, right?
So we'd have to basically have the rates or other fees make up
you can, I mean,
dollars.
we always hit the upper limit though. We don't want to compete with the private market because it's unfair for a city entity to be coming in and saying, okay, we're gonna do the same thing you're doing. The cheaper rate. I mean, you can, it's not illegal, but it's just a question of working within your market.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of it is like, if you took swimming lessons, for example, we keep that as low as we possibly can because we don't want to have a kid not learn how to swim.
Right.
I mean, that's important. And that chart, that stuff you have, the gap, that covers all the recreation division expenses, like our wellness that we put in there, COVID shots, flu shots, that's in, we're not gonna make any money back on that, but that comes in as an expense. That plays with that a little bit. I tried to figure out just the rec center to see how close that is. It's just hard to pull the numbers just for the rec center. I think the falls is pretty close. I don't think we lose money at the falls. I don't think we make money at the falls, but I think that's exactly where you want to be as a community rec field, just even.
Yeah, so I guess that, in my mind, that would be the priority, is to try to find a way to provide what our community wants, not focusing on the tourism aspect and not really focusing on like increasing our revenue or making money, but really like providing the facility that people want, but in a way that is still making us, like, we don't face a gap in the facility. I understand if, you're looking at that number overall, maybe it's only gonna look like a gap just because of what's in that number, but that to me, I think would be the best win for this particular particular project.
So Hannah, do you think that would be then, are you thinking that's A?
I think so, but I mean, I don't really know, the building itself. Like, I don't feel a strong attachment to that building, but I do feel a strong attachment to that location. So to me, I think that whether it's an expansion or a new facility, I would want to keep it where it is for the reasons I mentioned before.
How old is that?
1993.
And the addition, what year?
2001.
It's not well laid out really for an expansion either.
No.
You can't, it's not easy to make sure whatever you expand on utilizes the current. It'll almost be like a whole separate building, just
Right.
attached.
With a hallway.
And that's why I say a scenario plan could look like at A and B, like which one works. Right now, we're not sure if expansion works because of what people have said. But let's maybe look at that just a little bit before we dismiss it. But it might be more that we're looking at a new facility at that site, if that's really, that site is of high interest.
That'd be a great site for a grocery store.
We'd have to change the zoning.
I would say,
Just say this, our parking lot is full.
Yeah.
We do have off-street parking right now on 13th Street where people park on both sides. It's a little inconvenience to come and go, but when that's going on. We have 2 bike racks out front and they're only 4-person bike racks and I never see more than 1 bike on each one. It's just a different world where kids get dropped off and picked up versus try to bike to the rack. I wish they would. If I could do a program to help them out and make them, I wish they'd get more active. It's just not a world where I think we're in right now. We're gonna walk on the bike. Everyone's probably like to, if you like to the rack to work out. And that one picture, that, with the expansion, all that's gonna do, I think, is create more off-street parking, like Stephanie said, because the parking lot shrinks a little in that. But also that's moving Waterloo Road, putting in a roundabout, and I mean, that's a major.
It's just a concept. Guaranteed.
it's just we're not.
Well, and
Concept.
so how many of those properties across the way though, do we already own?
Yeah.
That's where we would look to put
Right,
more
Right,
parking.
we own, 2.5.
2.5
But,
right there.
We've stayed away from doing other acquisition. We were approached, but we've stayed away from that until we know what we want to do.
I would say my thoughts for tonight is, I don't think we're far enough along to ask you A, B, or C. I think we've still got, I think what I'm looking for is just direction on the type of priorities of what type of facilities we're looking for, like the rec focus versus tournament level. General thoughts just around what types of amenities, and your thoughts around that business model, like, are we open to looking at? Do we look at increasing maybe the membership rate and have some wiggle room, but still making sure we're keeping it affordable, not going to, $1,500 a year for a family. But then that way we can start trying to look at, okay, what works on paper, what can really be done and what types of facilities. Because I think it's tough to answer site location until we really have a sense of what facility are we doing, and maybe get a little further with some of these other facilities and see what partnerships there are for tacking onto a tourism facility or an outdoor turf complex.
We do, Mike, how often do you do the review of like the memberships and stuff? We've done the pool like a couple times.
We look at it every year.
Yeah,
When was the last time we raised the rates at the rec?
yeah.
It's been a few years. We talked about it this time. And we're right at the break where we decided, do we need to do it or do we just feel it's time to do it? And kind of went with, we're leaving them now, we're probably gonna raise them next year. To
Sure.
what we do.
Sure.
I do think we're at a point too, I think, where it's hard to raise the rates if we don't offer something new.
Correct.
And there's really not, other than just shifting stuff around, we can't really offer anything new in the space.
How many, if you had to narrow it down into plus 55 and minus 55, what's the percentage you use?
Why is that the cutoff?
Well, it might be 70 now, so. I'm not, so.
That's a great question. I think it's pretty right down the middle, like daily drop-ins for more seniors because they're during the day and have opportunity to do it. Where we get kids in there is when there's not a school day, like snow day, we'll be packed solid with kids that just want to burn some energy, which is great. The sports flex raise their minimum daily drop-in rate age to 16. So you have to be at least 16 over there. So we're getting a lot of those kids over here to play now, which is fine and great. But again, that just limits some of the court space for our kids a little bit, which is okay. They get along, we co-mingle. We have basketball going on right now, which is 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. So if you went up there on a Saturday, it's insane. All the gyms are filled with littles. So it's more our programs, I think, that bring kids in versus just the daily drop in. We have limits in our weight range. You got 16 to go in there, their weights just for insurance purposes and whatnot.
Well, the indoor playground is nuts.
Yeah,
Yeah. I would say, I think there is a lot of room to grow on like that playgrounds, even just having an indoor space like that, you get a lot of families
And
coming regularly.
way less effort for staff hauling all that stuff in and out. Like if there was a space that was consistent.
but we only offer 2 days a week because we don't want to tie up the gyms all day long. If we had it all the time, it's just such more advantageous for everybody. Even in the summer, if it's raining for 3 days in a row and you got little kids that just want to come burn some energy, we'd have a spot.
I only asked the question for one reason, is that most seniors in their health insurance plan have free gym membership that's included in their insurance. And so if you raise the rate and the people who complain the most, which is my definition. So they pay mine to go to Planet Fitness, but, and I know I couldn't get it there, but.
So what we've just started offering within the year is Renew Active, which is kind of just like Silver Sneakers, just.
Yeah, so, yep,
Yep, but we do offer that now.
oh, okay.
And then we do get asked about it. That's why we go into it. Because yeah, you're right. The people that ask every month. Yes.
That was really the bottom line of my question.
So it sounds like we're hearing the general consensus is more about a community rec facility. And maybe move ahead to, looking at some scenario plans, whether it's a new facility, expansion there, but based on some of these interests of, do we need a couple more courts? Do we need some more space for indoor? That, and keep the tourism parts separate. Is that kind of what we're, is that the direction you feel like you need, Stephanie?
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe some consideration for some more niche things that we might like at the rec center to be at
Sure.
some of those places.
Yes. Right.
Stephanie, did I understand you correctly that like if this tourism thing would happen in a perfect world, we could maybe think in our heads like, oh, in the future, we may expand wherever we build it. That would be maybe
Very
in our
nice. We
head.
should build it with that in mind,
Yeah.
noting how
Absolutely.
many places have expanded within a short period of time. Yeah.
That's the downside of this site. You're just constantly gonna be buying more properties to whatever move that may or may not happen, and you get held hostage eventually. We're not gonna sell.
Another niche type of thing, if we're talking indoor stuff, indoor track. Like there's a lot of people who travel competitively for indoor.
That was the pitch we got with Ralph, so I told that group.
Yeah, you and I is going after that.
Now, somebody
Which
should,
would
I
be
mean,
great.
there's people that drive over to Chicago to run on indoor tracks.
Yeah.
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 Hopefully you and I will get that done.
We were told we'd have a world-class destination facility with that, so.
Let's see it happen.
On their dime,
So related to the facilities discussion, the three parts of that, this is the summary here of just getting council direction or acknowledgement if this is how we might want to move forward. We propose that the indoor sports tourism facility, we think at this point, a conceptual plan that helps us then move forward with discussions and try to get something more concrete over the next year. Having that in hand might help us get direction on timeline, location, facility, that type of thing. If the council wants to move forward with an outdoor multi-use athletic fields feasibility study, we would need to program that into the CIP. We don't have that in right now.
Do we have a location for that or not? Can that be
No,
incorporated,
have-
can that be incorporated into Bristol Park or not?
No, I wouldn't be able to.
It doesn't really have, you know, I used to think that too, before the Parks Master Plan, I'm like, what about Birdsall? But it really doesn't have the land that you think
Yeah.
it would.
But we've got some places in mind, but nothing that like we own that we just
Now,
like build.
maybe
there.
Robinson Dresser. Might be something to look at. There's some property next to it, you know, maybe that's a partnership, I don't know. And then, the rec center, looking at some scenario plans for that current site based on some of the things that you've talked about today. So two of the items we have in the CIP, the first item,
This year?
yeah, for this year, right. Forgetting the 15,000 where we were funding that from, but, then the rec center was through reallocated parks implementation funds.
The outdoor, the number two, I think probably we've all, if you talk to anybody, because that would be like ball diamonds and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like anybody that's ever had a kid where you've driven all over the country every weekend, for all of them, but like softball and baseball folks, I often hear, I wish I could just stay in the Cedar Valley to,
And while we hear that,
yeah,
since we know so many other places have invested in that,
yeah.
that seems it could be saturated. And so will we really get any tournaments and tourism revenue? That's why the sports destination assessment said, focus on the indoor turf.
Yeah.
So this is one
That's
where
different.
Stephanie and I disagree a little bit.
We do disagree.
And respectfully, but I do think we're not building a tournament facility, because I do think we're not gonna ever host a huge tournament, like a multi-state tournament. I do think, just knowing how the things work, we'd get, if at least one out of every 4 weekends you're able to stay regionally. I think we get a lot of just regional tournaments, able to have a weekend here instead of traveling to every other place. I do still like, it's not gonna be a huge tourism draw, but it's gonna at least give some of that amenity, because right now we don't have, not just Cedar Falls, in Marlow, Cedar Falls, entire region, we don't have tournament grade baseball fields. Like we maybe have one at Robertson Dresser that's actually regulation size,
Or you go to Dyke.
or you go to Dyke. And so,
I think the key word that I hear is it's also, I think, an amenity. Like for folk, like even to practice, like it's hard to find a place to practice, when they're doing their ball, once they're all going. There's a lot of travel, like not just travel teams, but there's a lot of travel teams.
I think the key though is if you're going down that path is don't forget multi-use, because there's a lot of these that are combo baseball,
Right.
softball
That's-
/ soccer / whatever.
and so just so like Fairway Field as an example, it's a big square it's artificial turf. But it can be set up to be either 2 full-size baseball fields on each square, or 4 softball fields, or it also has 2 full-size soccer fields on each square, which would be in addition to the soccer complex, so they don't have any artificial fields. And what we heard from some of the other places like Fairway Fields is a lot of times when there's rain and things, you simply can't play on the grass fields. Turf, it drains much faster. You can be out there playing right after the rain's done.
And there's great examples of that, the Grimes Flex, the Hy-Vee, Grimes Flex, whatever they call it now. I think Hy-Vee picked up the major sponsorship there. And then also TDK down in Davenport has some multi-use that are
And if we do
bat and ball
turf,
and soccer.
we can always go after a Northwoods Women's League softball team. Just saying.
And so again, I'll politically put my mayor hat's always on, But speaking as one of the elected here at the table, I do think item number two, we need to move forward with, partly I think there's a lot of private dollars that are willing to back that. And even if we put 100,000 in, I think we can get private dollars to match whatever we're putting in, and we shouldn't have to pay for that whole thing. And I'll use, again, the court works as an example, that was largely privately driven. And I think in the past, we've typically, as the city, done all the work. And this is one where I think we can get private partners to come on board. We still want to budget some on our end to make sure we can commit to pushing some of that. But I think that's the one that we can.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Danny. I think you're right. I don't think that the aim that we're going for, to your point, kind of those big multi-state, like I think of soccer teams, baseball teams that go to Kansas City or wherever else, something like that, little big 12 or massive facilities. No, that's not what we're talking about. But you're right. If we could, like Kelly said, get families around here that do club baseball that
Someone
would
will
love-
drive from
would-
northeast
yeah,
Iowa
would-
to come play here.
Yeah, would love to have just one
Back
weekend
on that.
a month.
Yeah.
Where we could get that filled, and I do think there's a regional draw there at that point.
And to the point of protecting affordability, usually, again, that facility eventually will probably be operated by someone privately. It won't be us running it. It won't be the most affordable place. You won't be able to just show up and take your kids out on the field.
No.
Like you'll have scheduled leagues and things. But that's why we would still have Birdsall. We're just working on improving the diamonds out there. So we'll still have local rec.
Right.
Like just walk out and play type facilities. But this would be more of a keeping some of those leagues here, those tournaments, smaller regional weekend things.
So again, it's kind of like the separate, just like the previous item we just talked about, right? We've got our rec bucket. It's just kind of more a separate public-private situation. So I think looking at it in that mind, I'd be supportive of adding that into the schedule.
And you said the feasibility, like, am I wrong in thinking? You said that will include maybe checking to see what the private deal or the appetite is? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Price. Okay, okay.
Dang elected.
We don't listen.
What are we in support
All
of?
right, should we move on?
So
Hold on.
just check, supportive of also looking at moving ahead with item number two, figuring out.
Are you
Yeah.
envisioning that? I know we're not necessarily looking at dates, but I don't think it's gonna glare at you for asking this. Are we looking at this in 27?
Honestly, I'm looking at probably trying to get that going before 27.
Well, 27.
But maybe
fiscal year.
Next
But
Well,
having a conversation, I've already started the conversation.
You're talking about fiscal year.
I'm talking within the CIP
Yes, for
for fiscal 27.
For all three. Right, and I think,
Correct.
we know these are the studies and these are the plans.
Yeah.
And not actually
Yeah.
having
Understood.
funding in the CIP. for-
Yeah.
And I'll commit to you, I will try to maybe get the whole thing paid for private.
Ooh,
So fair.
writing that down.
Well, I'll throw $20 in on.
Got it down, Mayor.
And if it doesn't, I'll.
I was gonna wrap up.
You'll
I'm
try
not
to-
writing that like that. I don't make that much money.
Your baseball, Mike's that race, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm glad you.
So on the rec center, when they do the scenario plan, is that all three options basically, or we gotta focus on one?
Well, I think first two based on the direction we just heard about a community, right? So. It's just asking about the three options in the rec center and the conception. I think if we heard, I thought what we heard was, we want the focus to be, it's still kind of a community wellness thing, but we would do conceptual plans, about A and B, but knowing that we would want to think about, are there some things that if another facility came up, a turf facility or whatever, could some of those other things that people are interested be tacked on to that? That's what I thought I heard was kind of the consensus. for
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was just hoping there was that option.
Yeah.
Cause I would say I wouldn't want to avoid option three. But I think
Right.
maybe like if putting 4 basketball courts made sense next to a turf
Right.
facility, but
Right.
we still have the gym, weight room and stuff over there type of thing.
All right. I had listed previously the Falls Enhancement Plan as something that we would talk about. We are under contract and we did receive, recommendations from the consultant, but we just got those last week. So this will be something that staff will be talking about internally and, see what we bring forward next year to talk about what amenities continue to enhance the guest experience there. That facility is about 20 years old. And so we want to keep that. It's been a community destination. It has, done well. It breaks even. It actually makes some money. So we want to keep doing that even as it grows older. We want to keep it, relevant. So more to come on the vaults.
Hope that includes some mini golf.
More to come.
Bringing it back like it really has.
Yeah.
That wasn't, it was a sweet little course.
Right?
The,
It's a good spot to
the
break
Happy Joe
in.
one,
Sorry.
the Happy Joe one.
No, Edwards used to have a little mini golf at snack stand.
Yeah.
And I also want the tag that I sewed to my swimsuit.
100%.
Me too.
100%.
Bring that back. please. Come on.
Love to.
Yeah, we're an hour and a half in, so quick,
Great.
let's do 10-minute breaks. I think we said 5 last time, but we were not back at 5. So. All right, we got everyone. I think we do.
Okay.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, we'll move ahead. So just a reminder about the Hearst Center for the Arts. That project is moving along a little bit, so just wanted to give a little bit of an update about what was happening. You'll recall, we were looking at, improving this facility and expanding it, that we were looking for some additional classroom space, slight expansion to the recital hall, enhancing the gallery space. There are shows that we cannot have right now for security reasons, humidity, whatever the reason might be. When the council was there and toured the facility a couple months ago, you saw the art storage has water lines over it. That's not really a great thing. So just a number of reasons to be looking at the Hearst. Some of the essential updates, no matter what, that we'd have to do, whether we do this project or not, is the parking lot is in bad shape. The elevator is going to need replacement. Lots of flooring throughout that's really looking bad and worn. The parking lots are not ADA accessible, would need to be reconfigured, and we probably lose spaces in them. So there's a lot that we need to look at there. And this project is trying to encompass all of that. The facility that we are moving ahead with for the master plan is an expansion from 12,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. So just an added classroom, larger ceramics area that has a lot of demand. Like I said, a little bit larger recital hall, improvements to the gallery. That space wouldn't increase too much. We would actually have an entrance area that's gallery space as well, which is kind of, we have a smaller gallery right now that we use, things like that. So we had a fundraising feasibility study that was completed in 2024. And it recommended that, yes, raising 3 million privately does seem feasible. And it had a variety of other recommendations about what we would need to do to move forward with that. And as you see here, we're checking that off the list. We have done a lot of it. And the council might recall maybe, was that August-ish, or maybe it was July, when you said yes to naming of areas. So we put together a plan that might incentivize, if you're a donor of this level, what might be the potential naming opportunities in the facility. So that is moving along. And in terms of the timeline for the project, just a reminder of some of the steps that go back to 2018. So lots of investment that has happened from our Art and Culture Board and our Friends of the Hearst, who have put their own funds that they've held in order to try to make this project happen. And they are funding the consultants' work to support the fundraising effort that there's a campaign committee working on. And so that kicked off in July. We originally thought that might be in April, but then based on last year's goal setting and then budget discussions that then changed that back to kind of what we originally were thinking of. Fundraising waited for that to get through the process, and so that it kicked off in July. We have not modified our end date, but we might ask for a little bit of grace there, depending on how things go. So I think really this time next year is when we might talk more about what's been the success of the fundraising, because we're still pretty early on. However, they do feel that they're tracking with their goals at this point. So we have more to come that we would work on if we move into next phases. A reminder on budget a little bit. This is the breakdown of funding. I think on your printed slides, you're going to be able to see a little bit better. I have two items in the table that I highlighted in gray that highlight changes made from the current CIP we have to what we're proposing. And the change is to reduce the amount that Blackhawk County Gaming would contribute to this project and what we would potentially ask them. We've met with them recently, and they've continued to express, and they've said it before, have expressed concerns about 1.5 million. I think we said that last time, that asking 1.5 million would be a big ask, given some of the changes happening with casinos, but probably just period. If we were hearing it was a big ask, but we thought, well, if we reduce it, then that might just further reduce what they're willing to fund. So, you know, ask high and know that maybe we won't get everything we ask for. But anyway, we have reduced that, hearing that they feel that we're not maybe listening to them when they say 1.5 million is too much. They haven't said what the dollar amount is, so this is purely a guess.
145.
So who knows? I can't guarantee 900,000 is the magic number either. But then we have to make up that somewhere. So we've added a line, general fund savings. So we will need to figure out how to fund this project. With that, we'd like to just confirm that we should continue moving forward with the fundraising and then look to discussing the next steps in next year. Sound good?
Yes. Mayor, Stephanie, were you going to bring up about council members meeting for the?
Yes,
fundraising?
yep, that's my next. Thank you. So given it's a thumbs up, then the next question for council is our fundraiser has asked to start working with council members and meet with council members individually about the fundraising effort, and start talking with council members about anybody in your circles of influence where we might be able to expand some of the asks that we're making. The fundraising committee has done a lot of that work, but we always have to continue to look to what, have you thought about this person or that person? We would rather have that discussion now up front than have the question later and the coulda, shoulda, woulda. So if council's open to that, we might look to set some one-on-one or maybe 2 council members at a time meeting with the fundraiser January.
I'm okay with that, as long as keep their expectations real low.
Well, that $20 you were gonna give the mayor.
Yeah, well, I
We're
can,
gonna
I can divide it, yeah.
You can spread that gift out a few years.
It's a sustaining membership.
Yeah.
Person, I was saying, like a lot of fundraising firms they hire is just to ask, anybody that'd be willing or might be interested, they'll do the work of asking them.
Yeah.
But maybe asking if you'd be willing to make an intro or anything, but don't feel obligated to, just like any fundraising effort, just trying to track down all the leads you can.
I could start a bingo fundraiser.
Yes.
What's your new bingo set?
Yeah.
All right. We'll move into the Parks Master Plan implementation. We adopted a Parks Master Plan in September of 2025, so we're so excited about that. And there were a number of different recommendations in the plan. I will go over all of those, or some of those, most of them, in the next couple slides. They're kind of in 4 major buckets: the priority improvements in existing parks, the big ideas, which we kind of talked about just a little bit, completing the trail network, and then future park areas where we'll lump in some specialty park and other type of park improvements as well in that discussion. So that's how I plan to move through this part of the discussion. All of these slides going forward are very preliminary. We're going to note that we have things in the CIP, or I might note, no, that is not part of the reallocation of the Parks Master Plan implementation. That would be additional monies. So I'll try to make that note. For the most part, if I do not make that note, What I'm trying to do here is, the council said we want to budget money, we want to allocate in the CIP for implementation. So we had that line item, Parks Master Plan implementation. I've reallocated into how we might accomplish this plan to the best degree possible. And then, like I said, I'll note anything that's outside of that reallocation, which is kind of new or additional money. Does that make sense? So again, any of this could move around depending on some of the council feedback. So to take away, we're doing this park next year, or this is the plan, this is gonna shift after tonight's discussion, I would anticipate. So the first part of it is, one of the bigger recommendations out of the plan was that with any park that we look at, we really should look at a park renovation plan. My words are, we reimagine the park. We don't just assume that we just do the playground and call it good. We should really look at the whole park. We should do some neighborhood engagement around it, and we should think about new trends and changing things out. That's kind of my takeaway from the plan. And so this item here proposes to do that, trying to focus on the near-term parks that were identified. So the Parks Master Plan did prioritize near, mid, and long. So near is 5 years, mid is 5 to 10, and long is 10 to 20. So as much as possible, how we might implement the recommendations of the near term. So we talked internally, this is community development and public works staff, our rec division, our operations and maintenance division, that includes parks. We all talked a little bit about all of what I'm presenting to you today and how we kind of reallocate monies and how we accomplish some of this. So this isn't just Stephanie for giving this plan. We've talked with other divisions that would be involved in this, and thought that this plan might make the most sense. Now, my caveats about what is up on the screen here is it relies on two different things to make this funding happen. The budget amounts that are there are just a guess. There's nothing behind them outside of Searly cost this much money. So, we can imagine it's gonna cost more. And I increased amounts like on Lookout or McMahill, which McMahill is the property across from Aldridge Elementary.
Okay.
McMahill was the name of the family we bought from.
Was.
Back in 2008, we bought from the McMahills.
Okay.
So those two are higher because they might have some specialty elements about them. So that's just right now what's behind those numbers.
Like a lookout.
Like a lookout.
Exactly. Yep.
Lookout.
Right.
Have a lookout.
I put kind of carrots behind a couple of those as potential gaming opportunities. Our plan prior to talking to gaming a couple months ago was that we thought we would just generally be asking gaming to generally fund all of our park projects. And they said, no, that's not what we want to do. We want to fund unique things, different things. We don't want to fund the same things over and over, nor do we want to just fund a general thing you need to do. So the lookout at Lookout Park might be the thing that we ask for funding for. That's unique, that's different. Maybe something specialty at McMahill that would have to be designed through that plan could be something we ask gaming to support. So that's the idea behind the carrot behind some of those dollar amounts, is that perhaps those are good candidates for gaming funds, depending on how they come together. I see Chris with a confused look.
No, going back to that McMahill, so we bought that in 2008.
Yes,
So that predates any of this conversation we had with park space and new developments. So Midwest Development and or the other developer to the other side has no obligation to put anything to that. It's all us, correct?
well, anything that's you see developing now, like Arbors to the south and the development to the north, correct? Or even to the east, no, they didn't provide any park dedication. Yep, but we fixed that. We fixed.
I know we fixed it. Yeah.
So are we, just a general question about like kind of design, are we looking at like hiring one company to just be like our parks like person, so that they all like, when we say, oh, we want the specific, we want a couple like niche things, then they have a greater idea? Or are we Or is each one gonna have to be?
Good question. What we would like to do, and it hinged on tonight's discussion, but my planning division has drafted a request for qualifications that would seek that we might select anywhere from 1 to 3 consultants, hopefully in that 3-ish range. And we might alternate, kind of like what engineering does with engineers. They pick qualified firms, and then depending on the project, then we do a contract for that project. So we're trying to position that we're ready to move forward, since we know council is very, very interested in implementing the plan. We would like to move forward with 1 or 2 of these pretty quickly.
Great. Because that's what makes it happen quicker. Is that what we're thinking? Or what's the reason for that?
To
Just to spread
have
the
kind
love.
of, to spread the love a little
Okay.
bit, but also to try to have different elements too, right?
Sure,
I think part of what you're saying is, if you use the same one, do you just kind of see
Yeah.
similar things happening everywhere? You don't get maybe different ideas.
Good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think like thinking in terms of kind of park creativity, like the park in North Cedar has kind of like a theme. And I think that is appealing. If you're talking about neighborhood parks, it's like, what's kind of the theme of the neighborhood? Then can you fit that into like actual playscapes, or, you know, if you live in a neighborhood that is lots of walking trails, like how do you connect that? I think that using that, some of that creativity is interesting. Although maybe more expensive.
So, the other, element that we need to talk about in this item in particular, but I will have it on our last slide, asking for council direction on a number of things with the Parks Master Plan implementation, is the private funding component. Building off of the council's policy about 25% private funds in a quality of life project, right now, this budget includes 25%. Is that appropriate when we're talking about reimagining our parks and doing playgrounds? Or is that only in the case where, say, I'll pick on the El Dorado neighborhood, says we want to be first and we're going to put some money in, so we're first type of thing. I want to move to the head of the line type of thing. So that's something that council needs to discuss.
That's something we talked about is, it makes sense if somebody wants to bring a project forward, prioritize it, that they fundraise. Now, if we go to a neighborhood and say, we're redoing your neighborhood park, you guys need to
Only
raise
up.
25%.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
great.
It doesn't
Yeah.
work the same.
right.
So kind of the typical policy has always been we look for 25%. So I think we're kind of looking for feedback. Are you expecting that out of all of these park projects? And one thing we maybe talked about, is there a way for us to, say, here's the baseline model of the park? And we can have stretch goals that the community, that neighborhood does fundraise. We can add additional amenities and things, but that's only if we get the additional funding.
I think that's a good way to, like, if I'm in my neighborhood, if I knew something was gonna happen, I would hope if the conversation was had with myself and my neighbors or whoever in the community, that it would be a good time to come together and make it even better, right? Like, is that weird to think?
Because I do think we would do pretty good neighborhood input for each of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea. I think the challenge with that will be that that might have to be then done outside of a project, because we're gonna try to move forward with the construction
Yeah.
right away. But that's all, I mean, we could probably figure that out.
Am I wrong? I thought we had a conversation about this like a year or two ago, maybe.
We've talked about the quality of life. You guys kind of did the policy of
Yeah,
25% of private to make a project.
but I thought there was something specifically about like the parks, like, kind of like this, of like, well, when we want to get, maybe it was just because we knew the park master plan was coming up. But like the importance of being able to move on it. And
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
not,
Right, that's why, like Lookout Park, for example, is set fiscal 26, because we do have funds in the CIP that were then budgeted, so we can move
Sure.
forward, starting on the planning. I don't know that we get to construction, but we at least can move forward with the process.
So if you make it look like a big old fashioned fire watch observation, we could run it to a cell tower.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. That's
You
creative.
never know, it's like the cross on Broadway, right?
Oh, talk about creativity right
Yeah.
there.
Right.
I do think, I mean, Stephanie, I think this is kind of what you're saying. It's like a little bit scary to open it up to like the 25% input if there is a timeline, because I know like with College Hill, some of that input kind of delayed the progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And it's
Could
like,
delay it.
you want people to give their input, but also if we are setting timelines, then I think there has to be some like wiggle room there. So maybe like what Danny is saying, more like, if you can, then we could provide you with X, Y, and Z. Maybe you could pick from these 3 options or something. I don't know if that's too specific, but
Or could you do like the plan, like move forward, like, you know, with our plan, not having to delay anything? But like, does it cost more? Say there was like an amenity that we couldn't do, but you know, that was a thought by the designer or whatever. Could it be, like, it didn't have to be done right away, but then maybe the neighbor.
That's more kind of what I'm thinking,
Sure.
because then it doesn't hold up trying to move forward with the project by adding that
Yeah.
variable of, well, now we gotta wait for you to fundraise.
Yeah,
so like
Yeah.
you're saying, if someone said, oh, we want a pickleball court in our park, we could say, all right, well, we're gonna do the rest. We'll leave this space for your
Right.
pickleball court. And as soon as you get it fundraised, then we can get that moving for you.
Part of the art of the public input would be to say, this is the budget we have. It's not unlimited, you
Yeah.
know, it's 300,000 because it's 100,000 more for the lookout tower. That's, you know, we'll get a grant for that if we do, otherwise we're not doing it, for example.
Sure.
But our base project might be 300,000. I'm just making it up. But if you want to do the pickleball court, we'll go ahead and fundraise and we can reserve this space and we can come back to that. That's an idea. Yeah.
I do think it's important that we have some consistency in the application and policy, because I know that sincerely, it felt like we had to have 100 grand or it wasn't getting started. I know that we came up with 118 so we could have a bigger gazebo, and I know, Chase, there was a lot of design input from various committees, but that wasn't true for the river project, where that they fell well short on matching that 25%. So it just seems like it's varying project by project. That's not good, just from a fairness standpoint.
So I'd say the river was kind of an anomaly in that.
Well, it was specifically discussed at a council goal setting. So council decided to move forward with it, knowing it was gonna be a lot lower.
Oh, I understand it, but it's on, and I know it's a much bigger project like that, but it's, I mean, wasn't there fundraising for the Clay Street little park?
Yeah.
That was,
Yep.
yeah, right, then, so if we're gonna say, let's change that policy, let's have the lines where choose to have it exist and we don't, and pretty good demarcations, otherwise it doesn't seem fair to different pockets of town.
But to Hannah's point too, it's on the timeline, phrasing, but knowing where we want to go. But still want to try to be fair
Yeah.
on 25%, but you don't want to, if you don't hit that mark, you've already got the development and the design and all that in motion.
So we,
And that, like the river, I don't think I don't think fundraising is still continuing, but they didn't hit their mark.
well short.
Well, sure.
And then the target decreases by 100%. That's all fine and good, but when we have the budget up there, we should not have 25%. We should just not have any private, we can ask and to contribute, but if we're moving ahead with the project and it's gonna cost 300,000, we're not gonna stop at 150 and say, well, we did the dirt work. Yeah.
So Stephanie, the expectation would be like, we're saying, okay, we're doing Lookout Park. We would have like a community meeting to get input about what they would want to see at their park. And then we say, okay, the budget is 500,000. So based on your feedback, we're gonna do this. If you want to raise an additional 25%, then you could add to the budget.
We'd want to work with a consultant to confirm all that, but I
Yeah.
think that that's a scenario.
Yeah.
Yep.
To me, I think that makes the most sense, because then it's like, we can keep to our expectations of implementing the plan. And we can keep the community input, even if they don't have any funding. And if they want to have funding, then they can do something more.
So the park gets done, it maybe gets done more in character with, those that have an interest, more of an interest.
Yeah.
We can figure something out like that.
It's kind of like, sounds like if everyone's okay with it, we'll probably than we had expected not to have a 25%.
Yeah.
We're just planning the budget for these and then.
Yeah, so for example, Lookout Park, I just have the percentages, 112,000 in private was part of that 500, right? So it would reduce by that amount, for example.
Yeah.
Spend all of them that way.
Would it make sense before you go and talk to neighborhoods about what they want in their parks, that we come up with a base plan that we can afford? So that they know what we're planning on?
I think we can work
We
with the
can move forward.
consultant on the best strategy for going out for public input. Yeah, I think those are all good points. Absolutely.
I'm sure it'll have some like Mayhill, especially being a brand new park
Yeah.
in a pretty well off area, they're probably they'd be the ones to say like, no, we will raise.
Yeah.
Like 100,000, hold on, give me 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And let me call a few people.
Then we would need like two designs, so, okay, here's the base improvement, and then here are the amenities you could add for your, you know.
And I don't know how far, so it is hard with the first one because we're ready to move on to now.
Yeah.
Like Lookout.
Yeah.
Mayhill, maybe we have enough time that we can talk to them early and say, hey, this is gonna be coming up in fiscal year 28. Are you guys, here's what we have budgeted. We can do more if you guys raise some money. But so I'm guessing some of those on the neighborhood, like if a neighborhood says we want to raise a bunch of money for this, I'm guessing we wouldn't say no. As long as our timelines are met.
I think the concern was just making sure we started, not continue about a
Yeah.
dollar amount being.
Yeah.
One of you referenced, if we did have a organization, a neighborhood or whoever that maybe raised money, maybe we would prioritize that project over something else. Is that still on the table?
That's up to the council.
Because I was thinking that too. It's a good question of, okay, if we know we've prioritized these based on where we think as a community we need them. And now we've got park community over here that says, well, we can afford to be earlier in the line.
Like that.
Yeah, they're gonna get.
So that means the more well-off neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First Street,
Yeah.
that's not.
Yeah.
that's not-
Yeah.
Improvements in nice neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I will, an explanation about time frame.
I think you get skin in the game there, though. If you've got the skin. If you've got the skin, great. I don't disagree, but.
Cause I mean, I don't think that the College Hill neighborhood is particularly well off, but I mean, if they're really good at.
They are well
organizing.
organized, right? And that's what a lot of neighborhoods
I
don't
can
have.
attest to that, living in the College Hill neighborhood.
Right, but like, and I kind of feel like if, I mean, let's look at instead of College Hill, like, Orchard Hill. It's like that was a niche interest group, not necessarily a neighborhood.
Right.
So,
I'm not familiar with how many of those guys are in that neighborhood.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I don't think,
That's where the.
I don't think
that's
a
where
lot
the
of them
stores
work.
work.
Yeah. So maybe we do keep that, or maybe that's something we ask the consultants about, like, to understand.
Yeah, maybe
No.
you could at least pose the maybe pose the question or see if they've got any thoughts on whether that's a best practice or maybe that does just alienate people and that's not. Or, places favor one direction or another. I'm not trying.
I guess quick hypothetical,
Very
so I like my Eldorado. That's just down the road for me. So if our neighborhood came in and said, we'll raise 150,000, that's a 350. If you guys build this next year.
I feel like
Right.
that's gonna provide you momentum as opposed to,
I would say
I'm
my
gonna
personal-
raise $150,000, okay, but I'm still 4 years down the road.
So I will say I'm on the fence on it because I do feel like it's saying, okay, if you're rich enough to afford it, here's your park.
Right.
And you're using city dollars to reprioritize that. I hesitate on it. But is that right? If they say they'll pay 100%, okay, great, we're building your park.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I just posed the question.
But I do also feel like when we didn't really have a plan, if someone came in and was like, hey, I'm willing to raise the money, we were like, okay, well, we didn't have any plans to do this, so if you want to raise the money, we've got a general park fund, we'll just take the money out of that. But now that it's like they are prioritized, then it is kind of like you're bumping other people out of line. I don't know what the answer is. Let's ask an expert.
I will just mention to all of that, the Parks Master Plan talks a lot about equitably providing parks. So I think the your discussion is just that, right? And so if we stick with the timelines that they've recommended, we've talked about, we've looked throughout the community as well as what the age is for the need. And we avoid getting into some sticky situations, maybe.
Right, those are objective factors,
Yeah.
particularly the age.
So before we move on, I just want to clarify too, we talked about the 25%, that would be above and beyond, but I'm just curious in the CIP, how you feel like you'd like to see that. Like right now, we show the private contribution for each of those to show that, hey, we did that for Searly Park, that's our plan for this. But we understand that we're really saying we're gonna do a $400,000 project, but 500,000 is on the CIP because of the private dollars. I mean, I just don't want people to be confused about, oh, it says it's a $500,000 on the CIP. Well, no, it's really a 400,000. But the reason why I like showing it is to show we would like to get private donation to maybe fund some stuff. So I just didn't know if, just to get some general direction on the CIP, how you like to see that to make sure. My worry about not showing it is then people don't have that in their back of their mind at all of, oh, I didn't realize you were gonna ask us maybe to fund some of the stuff.
I like that, yeah.
To
That's
show
what
it in.
my concern is, it's not so much, I mean, I'm obviously, availability of funds is one
Yeah.
thing, but what College Hill has going for them is they're well organized. Like my neighborhood, I couldn't even get people to come and help me clean up on Earth Day. So like, what I'm saying is not every neighborhood is gonna be well organized.
I agree, and
But I think the communication of like, what you
Okay.
just said. So like, hopefully people can get organized.
Sure.
And I don't disagree with keeping it in the CIP, because I mean, everything in the CIP is aspirational,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Hopefully we get $50,000 in grants or, that sort of thing.
The only reason I hesitate on that is I don't want us internally to be planning to build a $500,000 park. And in reality, we're only planning to build a $400,000 park.
Yeah.
We just put
Maybe.
an asterisk saying that this is including the 25%.
Is it also not that anyone maybe beyond this room really pays all that much attention to the actual numbers in the CIP, but is it just gonna come across that we cheaped out on this by $100,000, but the first project we come out, hey, this next one, we cheaped out by, I think it sends a bad message.
Like only our biggest fans really read the CIP.
Should you reduce the amount now? Is that what you're saying? That's what I would do.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
what I originally wrote down,
I-
but
I
then I
would-
got to thinking,
I would prefer to see
After
the
hearing-
actual dollars we tend to put
Yeah.
towards this as opposed to an aspirational number that we doesn't really sound like
we're
an
really
asking.
not.
Then you can do the other route. Then you can add and stuff.
Because also I think going to how the residents perceive it, when we first bring up to the project with their neighborhood, I don't want it to come off as, we're expecting you to raise 25%, which if
Yeah.
the CIP shows that.
Yeah.
I feel they're gonna feel obligated, like, oh crap, we've got to raise, versus I think what we just discussed was, no, we're planning to budget for the park. And if there's additional things that could be raised for, that the community would like to look at raising, they can. The
So that's-
baseline
but
is we're
that-
paying for the park.
I'm sorry, Dan, but that effectively then eliminates the 25% requirement.
Yeah, I thought that's what we had just discussed.
Yeah. Asterisks. And we just put an asterisk saying that this
It is the
includes
same
a
thing.
planned 25%.
More than 25% for neighbors.
Unless we wanna do a separate line, unless we wanna do a separate line that says like park amenity or something and put 100,000 a year or whatever, you know what I mean?
Private.
As private, like it has the park of, I'm just using round numbers, 400,000. And then we just have a park amenity for all of the parks, not for each one, of 100,000
Yeah,
or
that'd
something.
be-
Maybe to
like
kind of
additional-
show we're hoping to
additional
do that.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
I'd be all right with that.
Oh,
That would work.
So where did we land at?
Yeah.
So I think for like Lookout Park, we would show, I think around numbers, 400,000 as the amount of the project. And we would probably show like Lookout, we're probably also showing, I don't know, we had in there something like 100,000 from gaming. You would show like 300,000 of city funds, 100,000 of gaming for a project of 400,000. But we'd have a separate line on the CIP that would maybe say park amenities, private of 100,000. To kind of have it on there and kind of still on the radar, but it would be above and beyond. It would be something extra. And I don't know if amenity is the right word. Maybe it's additional feature or however we want to say that. So we are kind of still have it out there on the radar. That if you want additional features, might have to do some private
And we
fundraising.
can write that in the project narrative for each of these
I think
items.
it,
Yeah.
I think it makes.
And just to check quick, since we're saying it'd still be 25% separate, do you think for Lookout Park, let's say they said, hey, we can't fundraise any. Are we doing this 400,000 enough, or do we need to budget 500,000 to make sure we get the park we think is needed?
Can't answer that right now.
I just want to make sure we weren't just all of a sudden cutting every park by 25% what we were expecting.
Yeah, well, to use our current funding proposed, that is what would happen.
That is what.
All
Well,
of
yeah,
those
no,
numbers
like,
would be
obviously
cut by
it would-
25.
It would change it if we added to our portion.
You can always add, right? Like if we just, I'm just saying, like that is sometimes like you do what you can.
Right.
And but then you know you need to work to budget for,
Well, or sometimes I think like Stephanie started this whole thing with, she was just putting a guess number in there based on Cedar Lake Park.
Mhm.
Well, we may do the design and all that, we find out it's really a 700,000.
Yeah.
Well, now we're gonna be stepping back anyway and saying, okay, well, if we're doing that, then does that mean we're not doing one of these other ones or
That part.
but
Yeah.
you know,
That's a big-
whatever. So yeah, I mean, until you do a design, it's hard to.
And really, I mean, the purpose of the CIP, it's a plan.
Right.
And we put the numbers associated with it, so we have a general idea of kind of what our bonding requirements are gonna be over the 5 year every time and that sort of thing, but the numbers always vary, the actual numbers always vary.
I mean, our other option here is, I've approached this as reallocating what we had in the CIP. But if we want to add to it, talk about that too.
And we'll talk about that when we go to the financial policies. We'll talk about that piece of it. So right now, we're just talking about all the great things we want to do. We'll worry about the paper.
Yeah.
I will say, quick on the Blackhawk Gaming piece, their big thing was they said they don't really look to fund just local park, like a local amenity.
Yeah.
Whatever their funding has to be more than just this is in every single park type of thing. It has to be something that attracts people to the region, not like a tourism draw, but it has to be something that adds to the whole area, not just, oh, we put another purple dinosaur in another park.
There's only one.
There's only one purple dinosaur. Oh.
And by the way, that park is getting used.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yes.
That's great.
The other thing that I wanted to mention with this slide is the time frame part of it. Set up that there's a park project every year that's in a renovation. And the first year, fiscal 26, for example, is kind of the planning, the putting together the concepts, doing the public outreach, and then construction the following year. So it's not like we're looking to go into a design contract for the first 3 on the list, and then we can talk with the neighborhood about fundraising and everything. We're actually gonna kind of, both for funding reasons and capacity reasons, do one at a time. And then lastly, there's an asterisk behind homes because we wanted to talk about the feeling about priority level on homes versus maybe Orchard Hill. Orchard Hill pickleball improvement happened, but the playground is in need of replacement. But Holmes and Orchard are kind of in a similar state where they're next to schools. So do we say, hey, we've done some investment at Orchard, so we should look at a different park? Or, hey, we want to finish what we're doing at Orchard Hill and we want to look at the whole park now that we've done the pickleball part? That was a little bit of a question. It's a toss-up of, Holmes or Orchard Hill. One reason Holmes is on the list is we're also looking to try to spread them out. So if we put Orchard on there, does it feel like Lookout, Orchard, and Coons are all in the same area? So trying to spread it out a little bit too.
I would also be curious to know if the consultants would say every single park needs like kids play equipment. Or like how much of a priority that is, cause like if there is a school playground that kids, when they were in school, would have access to. I mean, I realize then, my toddler can play on it during the day, but.
Yep, and that's a great point too. So Holmes, for example, shouldn't be looking at the park master plan says this specifically, should not be looking looking for around the 6-year-old, you should be looking at higher ages, because there are no higher ages playgrounds in that area. If you do a playground.
Yeah.
Maybe the neighborhood, sentiment is, we don't need another playground, period. We'd rather have fields, or we'd rather have nature play, or
Yeah.
Ice skating rink, or
That's what I would be
Yeah.
interested in exploring. Those.
Really, we're talking green space.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I think I've got through everything on this slide. Great. Well, then there are some parks that really don't need probably a comprehensive review and rework. There are a couple parks that we feel if we just did the playground equipment, that's gonna be good. Clay Street Park, for example, we've talked about the investment that's happened gradually in that one, so really the playground is the last element. Fairview in the Parks Master Plan, it does say to look at that bigger scale, but really, you know, the cemetery surrounds it. Does it really have more opportunity? We'd like to preserve that cemetery opportunity, so perhaps just playground equipment makes sense. So this is preliminary idea over the next couple of years of maybe some spots where we might just do the playground and nothing else.
So say that again, what about Fairview? And, cause it's a long way from burial plots.
It's true. I track across it
Yeah,
regularly.
so on a timeline of
Well, honestly, I mean, this is just one mom's opinion, but they just did a really great little upgrade. There was like a wooden, like enclosure, or like a little step, you know, around the outside. They took that out. Yeah, it was like a different material. They put in wood chips. They moved the bench, put in like a nicer bench. The play equipment is like exactly the same. There's a couple of little changes, but it's great. That was good enough. Freddie's living his best life, climbing up the stairs, going down the slide 105 times. Like, I don't think we really need to buy new playground equipment for that park. I mean, like an improvement like that was great, and I'm pretty sure that was all city staff.
Is it though, like sometimes I wonder. Like, are they maybe noticing things, you know, sometimes like at the school, in my opinion, it's like, oh, it's fine, but then like, you know, somebody who knows, who like works there will say, well, but it's becoming harder to maintain and keep safe. Is it that kind of situation?
I don't know offhand, but
Okay,
that's a
but
good question.
You had a
and
conversation with like,
we could find out for sure.
well, cause you had a conversation, like, it wasn't just you, it was like the whole team, did they maybe suggest?
Yeah, I think just Stephanie's point is, we're just acknowledging that not all of them are gonna be totally reconstructed.
Sure.
Some of them, maybe we're not gonna spend 150,000, we're just allocating some sort
Sure.
of dollars towards them to make small upgrades, whether it's to Hannah's point, or we just recognizing that these parks probably aren't gonna get the
Sure.
overall project. That maybe we can do it in-house, maybe we gotta buy a couple pieces of additional equipment. If the playground is outdated and inspected and unsafe, we'll want it.
Sure.
I'd probably say it's,
Really disappointed in that.
probably say it's fair to treat this like your road schedule of every year it might shift a little bit depending on priorities, but what we're really improving is what are we doing this year? And then here's kind of what we're thinking in future years, but those might always shift.
Yes, thank you. I thought
well
about saying that when I practiced, but didn't think about it right.
I got you.
Yes. So, great.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to other parts of the Parks Master Plan. So then there were,
we're not gonna,
okay,
Washington, you can rebuild a 9-hole golf course for $100,000.
this would just be the playground.
Oh, all right, we'll move on next.
You're still golfing Washington?
Yeah.
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 They might can.
Make a driving range out of it.
Yeah.
Chip and putt.
So we've talked just a little bit about a couple of the big ideas, but coming back to the list of six big ideas in the Parks Master Plan. I have some slides on this. We'll talk about the trail network one in the next slide. And have a later slide talking about the Skate and Action Park. I do want to talk about Birdsville here. I noted that the infield project that Mike and Public Works worked on together to get that going, and Diamond Doctors was out there. That was funded through this fall through the use of softball player funds. And there are 2 other CIP items related to Birdsville Park. Item 58 includes replacing current lighting with LED lighting, removing and replacing some of the ball field fence. And right now we have that listed for possibly fiscal 29. And this would require additional funds outside of the reallocation of the implementation plan. It is not part of reallocating those funds. And then item 59 is what we're calling Winter Wonderland. Might be an opportunity at Birdsville. There's a little bit of a hill there, and there's a restroom nearby and a parking lot nearby. Maybe we could create a winter playground that is something you don't see many other places. And so we're proposing that we try to move forward on that type of project by having some neighborhood involvement and talking about what that could be, and reallocating some of the funds in order to try to make that happen.
That would be like a sledding hill, ice skating rink, those types of amenities.
Cool. Hey, just a question. Is it a real thing? Like, you know how the ice skating rink that we have, but it's always obviously contingent on whether it's freezing or not? Are there like things that you can put, like just to make the ice free? Like, are there outdoor things so that the ice, even when it's 40 degrees, the ice freezes? Is that like way expensive?
Well, there's companies that make their refrigeration units that's in the winter, it's an ice skating rink, in the summer, it's a splash pad. It's
Oh,
dual function,
Okay.
but they're expensive.
okay.
$700.
Because there's like,
But there's a lot of different technologies to keep the ice through into spring and texture.
Yeah.
I feel like Marion just did a little skating area that in the summer is kind of a walking.
or a
Trail.
roller skating rink.
But so there are, and it's a nice little, so they're kind of midtown, I don't remember what they call it. It was part of a much bigger project, but I think they just opened it officially.
Sometimes the hockey folks, like, you know, I think in the past have like reached out about the roller or the ice skating rink that we have, but like, well, it didn't stay frozen, so. Anyway,
Yeah.
We had a parking lot in Waterloo, Bontrager Park. That's where I grew up. And that was the only one that was a gravel parking lot. And it was lime gravel, and it stayed frozen longer than any.
Oh, yeah.
The rest of them were good. There's one by Hoover that's the same way. Those 2 are the ones that stay together. The rest of them, you know, it's hit and miss, hit and miss.
Yeah.
But why no? I don't.
I do think Birdsville is a good place for something like that, though, because I don't think it's really utilized much in the winter at all.
It's a great idea. I mean, you know, you could have events, you could have people that do the ice sculpture thing, you know.
Yeah.
You could really
Let's
build
bring
that
it
one.
in a festival.
Yeah. Little shack that sells hot cocoa,
Yeah.
hot cider.
I'm wondering if like, you know, that might be an opportunity, like maybe we can't do that, maybe we don't have the funds to do that, but like, hey, the hockey people that, like, you could contribute to that.
Right. Yep. To keep moving then, we've talked about the rec center, we talked about the sports tourism destination assessment. We talked about multi-use athletic fields, and so we will have a slide on the Cedar River coming up as well. So just to kind of acknowledge all of we're trying to move on a lot of the big ideas in some way. We can't move on all of them like doing them, but at least we can try to figure out a little bit more what that looks like and what a plan might be. So on the trail network, engineering helped put this together. They looked at segments that were recommended out of the Parks Master Plan and tried to put pen to paper about what the cost might be. And the estimates for this and the costs are outside of the reallocation of the dollars. So these would be additional funds needed in order to make these projects happen. Right now, I think 3 of them are proposed in the CIP and 1 would be on the unmet needs list. So Cedar Heights Drive, for example, from Bicentennial to Pleasant is about $210,000 in total. Combination of GO and CFU is proposed on that, for example. And then the other ones are GO funds proposed. And then to move into kind of future park areas, part of this, which lumps in a couple different things. We already adopted the parkland dedication standards, so we'll see more coming from new developments in terms of providing land. There are a variety of kind of other park improvements. I feel like other feels a little bit diminishing to some of the projects, but I don't think that's the intent at all. We'll talk about Pheasant Ridge Golf Course in some later slides outside of talking about the Parks Master Plan implementation. And then the dog park, splash pad, and the sports action park. What we're proposing is that we move forward with a specialty park design assessment that looks at all three of those. They all have externalities that could be a challenge for neighborhoods about dogs barking or about skater music or whatever the concern might be. I'm just making it up. I don't know. This area.
What is that, Hannah? What is that skater music?
I don't know, but it's all the time at my house.
You skater's voice, she said.
Exactly. Sure.
Splash pad, you know, you need to be in proximity to water. Maybe people don't like to hear laughing, screaming kids. So just imagine that those uses will have a lot of thoughts around where they should be located. And we already in the Parks Master Plan had some suggestions about this would be a great park or that park. Perhaps even the parks that the master plan recommends decommissioning the playgrounds, not the park, just the playground. Those could be great spots for one of these. So, but the consultant had recommended with the Parks Master Plan, don't just get rid of the playground and don't talk about what you're gonna do. So that's why we're recommending a design assessment that looks at all of those, then develops, well, what would be the best location? What would be the types of amenities? What would be the cost to do that so that we can develop a plan on how to implement those items?
And that would be like skate action steps on talking with the community group, pushing that to look at design concepts, like get cost estimates. And I think maybe try to get some feedback on, okay, if this one's, if that is the type of project, if we're gonna move it forward, we'll need some private fundraising.
Yep.
So then putting that plan in place to give them some steps forward for how to take a project like that. Keep moving it.
One more slide before we get to, okay, what do you really want to do and what's the funding? So the last one is another big idea was the Cedar River area and continuing to build off of the investment that has happened there in terms of creating more connected amenities there, building off of the water trails, and thinking about any redevelopment of that area, about what the park space should look like. And I think I'll give a nod to, you all had on your desk a letter from the North Cedar Neighborhood Association when we asked them to provide what would be their priorities. We received this over the weekend, so we wanted to put it on your table, and I think a lot of what's in here also kind of relates to this big idea with the Cedar River. This is one that, because of the huge investment that occurred along the river very recently, right now staff's not proposing any action.
I'd say too, this is the type of project I feel like you need some sort of lead community donor or someone to come in and say, this is something I want to drive forward. I feel like it's hard for just, with all the other priorities you have for the city to say, we're just gonna put this in the CIP and fund it. But you know, the big donor came forward and said, we've got $5 million to donate. Okay, then we could start maybe having a more substantive conversation, because we've got some good concepts for that whole area for the Cedar City, working with ISU. But I do think it's one of those, it's a bigger stretch, one that would need some more community partnership to really drive what that would be.
And we need to get some love all around town, right? Yeah.
And just your opinion, do you think there's a way to help people to know that that is a possibility. Because, I mean, like, you know, there could be someone sitting out there that maybe they would be interested in that, maybe they, you know, would want to contribute, but it's like they have no idea that that's even on our radar. And it's like, if someone did come forward and said, here's $5 million, we'd be like, okay.
Well, do you feel like it's on the radar because it's in the parks master plan? It's just not on the funding radar.
Because I would say continue to point to it, okay, like we've identified this is a big opportunity for us, it's something we want to move on. Because I know in the back of my head, I've still got a few people I know that might be interested in this type of thing. And just, again, I haven't gotten time to follow up with all those leads, and so I still plan to keep talking with people about it to kind of see where some of those fall, and I hope the same for other community members if there's opportunities that come through. So I was meeting with Debbie Durham last week with IEDA, talking about their Destination Iowa funds and some of those, and you know, with those dollars, they're really looking to fund amenities that are unique in the state. Like they're looking for state tourism. And so them funding an athletic complex or anything like that, that's gonna be maybe a CAC grant or something like that. Destination Iowa money is more for like 1 to 5 million. They're gonna be looking for some sort of transformative river trail connecting us with Waterloo type of project that's much bigger. But again, would take some of those bigger partners. So, and I know I've talked to all of you about the ISU, say like, we've got some materials if we want to show people, and maybe I can get that to everybody. And I do think it's something we do want, it's the whole point of this Parks Master Plan is we want people thinking about these things, talking about bringing some ideas forward, knowing you can't do them all at once, but we want people talking about them.
So maybe going back to our much earlier conversation from last about like our website, like maybe there's a place that like, you know, I know this information lives on the website, but somewhere that we could put this so that, you know, if Gil was having a conversation with someone, he could just easily access it and be like, oh, this is like a conversation that we've been had, you know, whatever.
Look at that, just have them make it more readily available.
Yeah, I think just like having a lot of this stuff, just having it more accessible to people, I think is a priority.
You just need a page that says, you have $5 million.
Yeah, money, like here.
That money is
Area of opportunity for you.
Click here.
It's big flashing.
Right, enter your
Like,
credit card,
yeah,
right
cell
here
phone.
on city center.
Right.
So that's a dedicated $5 million phone. It's
The
ringing.
red phone.
The back phone is ringing.
The back phone's our phone. What happens with the phone? There's one club over there in Island Park.
Still there, still going.
Still
What changed?
No,
Oh, and there's no real specific plans for this right now. There's some very high level, I think, phase 2 concepts done with the river redevelopment, but they were very just,
A lot of this, Craig, we're talking about over in Cedar City area,
Oh, okay.
farther down. It's not giving $5 million, but you know, there's some volunteer things that are offered up in here. Maybe we can follow up on some of that.
I mean, the, or Cedar Dock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which we have another segment to talk about requests where we talk about Community Main Street, North Sierra
Yeah.
Neighborhood Association. I just thought I'd mention it since it tied pretty well
Yeah.
to this topic. So in summary, we're seeking council direction on a number of things. I think that you've given some nods here and there about it, but maybe we should just go through. If having heard all of this, and in particular with the park redevelopment, development, and initially kind of those parks identified, do you feel that we should move forward with that and we should move into consultant selection for that to get concepts, neighborhood involvement, and try to get to construction plans? Should we move forward with the recreational trail, the 3 projects that are listed in the CIP that would take GEO funds? I guess that's a conversation at CIP adoption, but should we leave those in there?
yes.
Yes, okay.
Quick
Great.
question on that, and this is timing stuff, but like, I know somewhere in Chase's stuff, there was talk about the roundabout at Union and 27th. And that would be probably the appropriate time to look at doing that trail connection down to the high school.
Along the creek there, right? That's the.
And that was number 4 on that list, and it's
Yeah, the reason we
what year that
didn't
was.
choose that specific one is those are development driven, so when they come in, the developer will pay for half of the trail, which will pay for the other half, but it didn't really get the whole thing. The other thing with that is we have federal funding in that project, so we did the trail.
Screws that up.
Oh, it doesn't really screw it up, it's just we pay a premium for that trail. We got you pay for
Dave's bacon and all that. Okay.
all that stuff. So we did look at those trail connections and there are some that's like by Menards, there's a long stretch along Viking that's not in either. But as that Oster property builds out, they're required to put it in. So we kind of looked at the existing gap today. and
Sure.
Could easily
That
connect.
maybe aren't accounted for in another way.
Yeah, because I do think that stretch, there's a developer working on that neighborhood area that I think then will extend. So like probably not all the way, but maybe we look at that last little stretch as that gets,
That makes good sense. I just wonder if there's an opportunity there.
did you hear about that one a lot? People.
Yeah.
So on number 2 there, about 25% private funding into neighborhood parks. I think we had direction on that. So we're going to add a line item in the CIP for like park amenities as private funding. Reduce the amount in our current proposal about Lookout, McMahill Homes, for et cetera. And add in the description about the possibility of adding on if private funds are raised. Okay. Number 3, the big idea priorities, the rec trails, I'm listing them in order here, I guess, in some fashion, I guess, in order. I should take that back, not really in order. I've numbered them and lettered them so you could say, well, I don't like 3E, for example. Sorry, Mayor, I don't mean to pick on that one.
Yeah, I'm sorry, completely.
Yeah.
Very slip. I mean, I hate 3E. I mean, it's arbitrary.
So that's why they're numbered and lettered.
But if we don't not like them, we can, I guess, I don't not like them. But maybe at some point we're gonna talk about like the priority. Is that your good thinking?
I
Yeah,
would agree. I think right now that a lot of that, like the rec center, the multi-use, the turf, a lot of that's just preliminary funding.
Sure.
Right now. We know probably maybe that's a year from now. We might have to make those bigger decisions about, okay, now if a multi or the indoor turf is however many million and we can't get a private partner or whatever it is, is that a higher priority than the public safety building or, whatever it is?
Yes.
But so I feel like a lot of those are just preliminary funding that's in there right now that I feel like we've gotten direction on those that, yes, we want to at least put some money in for a study on the multi-use fields and try to get a investor. I mean, I feel like that's what we got. We got some direction on the rec center about doing some conceptual plans and some of that at the current site, right?
Yeah, the only ones we really haven't specifically addressed until now is A and B, right? The other 3. we
Yeah,
already
we kind of talked about that.
And if you're interested right now, B, I mean, we talk about now our financial policies. You may recall in September when we get to the end of our fiscal year and we have general fund savings in this last year, council voted to take half of that to what we already had committed to, which was the pool, and the other half, 300,000, was for some park projects. So on the CIP right now, Birdsell Winter Wonderland is one of those using part of the 300,000. So you can see it on the CIP. If it says GFP, that's the general fund park. It's that 300,000, but you could choose to do something different. I mean, obviously it doesn't have to be that.
You could probably get B done.
Yeah.
How does that?
Yeah.
How does that funding, specifically the Winter Wonderland, play with the specialty parks? Because I think we've heard, I know we have heard from people that they want more activities for the winter, but also I feel like not to, I hate this phrase, but it's the only one I can think of, beat a dead horse. But if we don't get the splash pad done, I think I'm gonna lose friends at this point. So.
That'll be part of the Winter Wonderland.
Yeah.
I'll go with that $1 million design where you can make it an ice skating rink.
Well, I'm not sure if I totally understand what you're asking, but I'm gonna they're separate projects, each funded. So the Winter Wonderland, I think right now, 200,000 proposed to try to move a project forward. That would be the neighborhood component as well as implementation of something on that. Then the specialty park design assessment is to take a look at those 3 items and talk about what the elements should be, where they should be located, and cost estimate, so that we can identify how we might move those projects forward, probably at the next goal setting.
But I think,
Does that answer your question?
Sorts of funds, like.
Are you,
Yeah.
that why that money got dedicated towards that particular project versus going down this direction?
Yeah,
and we could do that.
And how
You
that
could-
decision was made?
yeah, you could, I mean, I feel like we've been talking about a splash pad for a while now, so it's like, if the funding is either Winter Wonderland or splash pad, I think it needs to be splash pad.
But in the CIP item for the design assessment, we have study as well as some implementation funds. I don't remember how much. I don't think it was over 200,000, so it wouldn't be, I'm guessing, enough to do a splash pad. So to your point, if you want to say, we want to put that money from Winter Wonderland into the specialty park design assessment for implementation of whatever comes out of that, we can do that.
So we have an idea.
I'm pretty cool with that.
Splash
Because the
pad.
Wonderland idea could be there forever, right? We just don't have to fund it now, right? Or what?
I mean, I just think we've heard, we've been talking about some of these other ideas, splash pad dog park for multiple years. This is the first time we're talking about Winter Wonderland. So to me, I think Winter Wonderland needs to fall below those other parks.
Additionally, I mean, Winter Wonderland's front and center right now, but tried to do Winter Wonderland the last 3 years, you've
Mhm.
been severely disappointed.
Yeah.
Really mild winter wonderland.
Yeah. Splash pads, it's always hot in July.
Kind of, winter one.
True that.
Well, so,
Kind of tongue in cheek, but I would like to have an idea of what the combination, ice rink, splash pad thing would.
Well, I was actually just wondering, like Spurnsville Park, a good spot for a splash pad. But.
Yes, it's much closer to my house than my original idea.
So it sounds like if we look for something like priority in terms of funding and prioritization is we're really looking at some of the splash pad things before we start adding Winter Wonderland as a new project to some of that discussion.
Yes.
That's
But seriously, if we could do a combination hockey rink slash back.
But,
slash-
yeah, that
that'd
would
be real
be-
great.
We're
Yeah.
really gonna need that 200,000 then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think I heard
I'll
you
be-
say
yeah.
real expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we talk to the
Well,
hockey.
that's why we combine.
Yeah.
People have money.
Then we go
Yeah.
talk to the splash pad people. Oh, wait, who's on the splash pad team? It's just me. Shoot.
Everyone loves it.
Anything else along those same lines? That's what this slide is about. Let's
We go
talk
back
about
to-
that, go back to anything.
I'm great with moving the money towards the splash pad. I want to go back to the question that you originally asked though. So how do we decide with those dollars that, how do we prioritize that particular project? That's the first I've heard of that particular project. So I want to go back to, Hannah's right, we've talked about the splash pad for, this is our 3rd goal setting, right? So for 3 years. I'm just curious how the decision was made to get to this one.
I think that just came up of, if we're looking for a splash to try to do some things now, that could be a low hanging
This is
fruit,
something you felt.
kind of an easy one to move forward, right?
From the parks
It-
master plan.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
I don't think that anybody's tied to that it needs to happen now, though.
Okay.
But what, again, I asked this Indy, like, we're not worried about funding things right now, but we were just talking about, does this group want to see a splash pad move forward quicker?
Then Winter Wonderland.
No, I mean, like, so right now, kind of what's planned here was just doing some design, like getting feasibility numbers, location, but do we want to actually see progress made on choosing a site, moving toward construction or
I
something?
thought that was included in the thing we're gonna do for the,
Yeah, the design
space.
assessment was going to evaluate all 3 of those
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then try to decide, see what a priority might be.
So I'm kind of asking, does this group want to see construction and cost bids and estimates this year?
I don't want
That's-
to see that. I'm okay with it. I mean, I get it. I wanna see it happen, but I don't need it to jump over everything else.
I would like to see it jump over everything else. I mean, I think at least for me, and again, it's probably because I'm like the team cap splash pads. But like, I hear from people all the time. People are leaving Cedar Falls multiple times a week to go to other communities to go to splash pads in the summer. Like, I literally did it once a week all summer long, as opposed to being able to stay here and go to my local splash pad. So I think it's like, I do think it is a huge priority for people. I mean, it's like, if you have little kids, I don't have to get other little kids pee on me when I go to the splash pad.
I didn't know that's what a splash pad was.
That's what a pool is, Gil. That's what a pool
Oh,
is.
that's what a
You gotta
pool is.
be in the water when you have a little kid.
So Chase, how complicated are these, ice rinks in combination? I mean, is this something, if we, I'm all about moving the pad to the priority list and getting it done. But it would be nice if we can get a combination thing and so get
Well,
year-round use
we
of it.
can ask a consultant to consider multi-use with the splash pad and see what happens out of
The
that.
only reason I'm familiar with it is Waterloo, the hockey group came forward a couple of years ago and would like to move some of their operations to Cedar Falls. They had money and they threw around this idea that there's these ones that can hold ice longer and they're refrigerated and they're dual purpose. So we started looking into them and yeah, they are expensive, but
So would this be considered something that would be able to be built in the Gateway Park with the floodway? Being that it would be floodable or
My initial thought
Theoretically.
would be avoid it because you're putting a lot of expensive mechanical equipment in a floodplain. I don't know if that's gonna be viable.
Probably preferred, so.
And
okay. Well, I just was tying into the riverfront.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do the thing of where we should put it, right? The assessment, especially park. Assessment.
Well, what is the timeline on that?
Well, I can tell you from a personal standpoint, you're not gonna catch me, ice skating or hanging out in splash pads. So I don't have any skin in the game on that.
Totally fair, Gil. Totally fair.
To answer your question on timeline, we'd like to move forward with this design assessment. Like, I'd like to get that RFQ out. We're structuring the RFQ that planning is written to be about a park renovation and getting consultants as well as the design assessment. Because we know the priority of these items to the council.
So we're still looking at a splash pad not until next year, 2027.
Yeah, I don't know if we would have enough funds to fund whatever comes out of that study, so it's possible we'd be talking about it next year again. But if we put the Winter Wonderland into it and that comes out as the priority after a council discussion, maybe it could get started. I don't think it's totally out of the realm of possibility, I just don't know that I can guarantee it. Sure.
And again, part of what we'll talk about the financial strategy part is the amount of funding we have for arts, culture, recreation projects, which will lead to some conversation about how quickly these items get acted on.
So if we could look at, Chase, who, did they approach you, the hockey folks on that?
oh, I'd have to ask Brian again, but I'm
Sure.
pretty sure, yes.
I'd love to know if there's still an interest there, because to me, that royally changes my thought process on how quickly you ought to be pushing for this, because I think if you get a multi-use, and now we've got a public-private opportunity here, right, where they've got some folks that, again, they've got skin in the game. If they've got a ability and some funds to throw towards this, I'd push it faster. I really would.
I can't think of anywhere else they would have went because it's still
Doesn't
young
have one.
arena and that's about it.
Does water have one downtown?
They have.
Always
splash
got-
pad, but they
We've
don't
got a
have
splash pad, but not the
splash
multi-use
pad.
where we could,
No, no,
or are you talking about the ice rink?
ice rink.
Yeah, it's the one, the young arena, that's it. It's
Yeah.
the only sheet of ice in town.
Didn't they put one, isn't there an outdoor one next to the bank down there?
If there is, I'm not aware.
No, there's that plaza area. They did roller hockey out there.
Oh,
But
I know what you're
There
talking
you go.
about, across the
Yeah.
street from the
Yeah.
farmer's market area. that-
Yeah.
That's right.
I saw the boards up and I
Yeah.
would go, that looks like a hockey rink.
A really small area too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was just a roller
Oh.
area. that was-
Yeah, I think they called it.
Yeah, that coffee, yeah. Okay, well, I think as much as, again, for this meeting, just knowing that there's some of that emphasis on splash pad interest in the tie with the ice rink, we can really start digging on that. And again, we'll bring you back a CIP that tries to do what we can.
Yeah, the current one is stamped preliminary, so.
Yeah, that's right.
It'll be stamped preliminary.
I was gonna put that in your email.
Front, back,
Bold, underline.
limb.
Very preliminary.
I think everything.
So probably, do we want to ask what we want to do at this point? 5 days?
Yeah, so we were 5 to 8. This next part is kind of the just more non like capital project priorities. We've got, then after that, we look at the overall list, then the request from community partners, few just kind of council project priorities, things that came up in conversation. And then the goal document and some of those things. My gut feeling right now is we'll be pretty tight in the next meeting if we try to cover everything we've got left here. Got 1 and 2, if everyone had some time tonight, it felt good. We could try to spend maybe an extra half hour and just go through some of these, knowing they're not huge capital discussions, but also I know the extra time is not always the most valuable, and if anyone needs to go, we're not gonna keep going.
I don't mind staying. I just wanna make sure we're productive and like engaged.
Yep, yeah, so if everyone's still feeling productive and engaged, then
Want
We
to
can
try it
just-
for a half hour?
Just, let's just say 30, call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stephanie, you just want to sit right there? Sure. Okay. So as the mayor said, there's just kind of some other priorities, whether we heard them in the interviews with everybody, they're not really capital projects, but we're kind of trying to figure out where to put them. So the first one's real quick, city administrator update process. Most of you already know because you just got some information. Recruiters here on Wednesday. All of you should have gotten a time with the recruiter to kind of just talk about, I think they're just trying to get a feel for, what you want to see in a new city administrator, kind of take all that and come up with what those qualifications would be. I will tell you, the recruiter said it's usually about a 14-week process. So our hope would be is, probably get really rolling here at the, after the first of the year, and then we'd be looking at, whether it's end of March or whatever to hopefully see where we're at about getting someone on. So,
So in the March, I had to make an offer to somebody,
right,
and they might need
yeah.
30
Yeah.
days, 60 days to end their employment, come over, but at least to make an offer.
So like I said, I think everyone signed up for that Wednesday, and then actually, directors are part of the too. They set up times with directors too, to have conversation. To get some input, so, I think that's it on city administrator, unless there's anything else on that one. Pay plan. This is really kind of just to get some direction for budget purposes, kind of like we do on some of the other projects and CIP direction, so. We did hire, had a pay plan study done. We talked about that last year, that was one of our goals. So the first step in that was employees filled out a job analysis questionnaire. And then the consultant MGT interviewed employees about that. So they were, after filling out those questionnaires, they were evaluated on 9 factors, which are on the next slide. And it's, when you think about it, their jobs are evaluated based on, okay, how much training, do you need a master's degree versus a 2-year degree? How much experience is required? Do you have decision-making? Do you develop policies? Do you supervise people? Do you have contacts with outside or internal? So these were all of the things that those job classes were evaluated on. And then that's used to determine what pay grade they fall into. So the next step is that they also then compared the market with other cities. So you can see that they surveyed out to 19 peer cities, and we heard from 13 of them. And just for your benefit, those cities aren't just, who's next door and who's the next population. Actually, one of the things we liked about this consultant is they took a lot of factors in to determine that. It was taxable valuation, per capita income, property tax revenue, salaries and wages, and proximity. So we actually like that it wasn't just, hey, take the 5 above us in population and the 5 below. And so I thought that was actually a good method they had to come up with those peer cities. So, so then they kind of just took that market and compared it to that. So one of the things that I would say the overall thing that they told us was a lot of our entry level positions, the minimum was too low. The wage. That's not probably a surprise to us. And I say that because we've been struggling keeping like administrative assistants, that's really been a struggle for us. And we haven't been able to raise them or hire them at the minimum now. We've had to hire them more at midpoint and some of that. So I wouldn't say that's a surprise to us, but that is where we would see a lot of the adjustments that have to be made to our pay plan is at some of those entry level positions. They also had through that process 9 positions that they recommended some title changes, like maybe the purse coordinator should really be called the curator because that's really what they do. Accountant should be called accounting supervisor because they supervise people. It's some of that stuff that they had recommendations like that too. The other thing they did, and wasn't just about salaries. You can go to the next one, Stephanie. Salaries, it was also about benefits. So comparing to those peer cities we talked about, you can see that health insurance, we were actually pretty average to our peer cities.
Surprised you're not exceptionally better.
Well, I think the problem is just municipals in general. History of providing good benefits. So when you compare to everybody, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Compared to the private, Chris, you're right. Then we're way above. But dental insurance, maybe we were a little behind our peer cities because at Cedar Falls, employees have to pay 100% of the premium. Some other cities, maybe the city chips in for some of that. Vision insurance, pretty average to peer cities. Life insurance, average. Holidays and personal days, average to peer cities. Nothing really unusual there. Sick leave days offered per year was pretty average. However, ours is richer in that we let people accumulate it with no cap or expirations, where most other plans don't have that benefit. So that's actually one of the things we're richer about from a benefit standpoint. Longevity pay, we did see that we were a little behind in that as well. You can see, like, if you look at a 5-year mark in Cedar Falls, we get about $180 at 5 years. The average for the other peer cities was $355. At 20 years, you can see we're at 780. Peer cities are at 1,030. So a little behind in longevity. Vacation also lagging a little behind. And it wasn't so much like the max. Like the max of 5 weeks is pretty comparable. It's other cities tended to maybe get it just a little bit sooner. So I think we have to wait, like you start at 2 weeks, maybe you get to year 6 or 7 before you get to go to 3 weeks. Most people, it was like at 5. So just a little bit sooner that they got it. And we thought that's actually because we know time off is what people are interested in. That's actually one of the recommendations we would like to bring forward is to get that vacation just a little, not, again, it's not giving more, it's giving it maybe just a little sooner. Be it a 5, 10, 15, 20 year thing versus whatever it is, 6, 12, 18, 20, whatever it is, just a little bit sooner. One of the things from the overall pay plan, and you'll see this come forward, this is kind of a little preliminary to give us direction for budget, is really just to maintain our open range merit plan. So for non-union employees, they would recommend to continue get merit increases. Really the pay grades that we have 20 now, they're just recommending going 17, so nothing too extreme there. But they did then develop those pay grades being at the 50th market percentile, in other words, average. So some of you that were here in 18, that you, Kelly, you weren't here in 18 either. So the last pay plan study we did was in 2018. Council had directed at the time, we don't want to be average, we want to be above average. And so we did it at the 60th percentile. This time they're recommending to be at the 50th, being at the average. So the next one you can see is if we did that, there's 24 employees that would have to get a bump up to get up to that new minimum. And again, that's being at the average. And that equates to about 58,000 to implement it. That's the other reason why we stuck to the 50th percentile versus the 60th percentile, because that got to be a lot more dollars. So, and then longevity pay, if we want to get that more up to the average, that would take about 23,000 to implement that to get to the average. So on the next page, really our council direction is, are you comfortable that in the budget, we just budget for those items? But again, we'll actually bring the pay plan report to get formally approved by council, but just really trying to get direction. If you're comfortable budgeting those, we would also then also bring back the policies about changing that vacation. That's not really a budget item, because when you think about vacation, it's, it's hard because it's not really dollars out, but we all get, it is a cost to vacation. Or I get for some departments, like public safety, people are getting vacation and someone else has got a backfill.
Right.
Then there is a cost to that. So, so that is one of the things that we feel, those are the things that we would look at changing. Because really, we thought most of the other benefits, we are right in line. Maybe we were a little behind on dental, but we were more rich on sick leave. So we thought, maybe those kind of offset a little bit. So that's really our direction, is if you feel like that's something you'd like to put us to put in the budget at this point.
Yes, please.
Be considered impression with this when you look at.
That will be, it's funny because
Dissatisfier.
I think some of our challenges are gonna be is when you raise people up, 24 people. Now, remember, this is not union employees. This is just non-union. We also understand, we think, oh, everyone's happy about that, right? And we know that's not true. There will be people who will be like, well, wait a minute. I was making $5 more than that person, and now I'm only making $2, and I've been here 20 years or whatever, and they've been here 5. That is true. I mean, I think.
I just don't think I'm all for it.
I know.
But I will tell you that it's not unique in the public or private sector to have entry level positions that constantly turn.
Right.
You're gonna have that. And so I think the unintended consequence when you bump that up,
That's
is
true.
that you've got some real dissatisfied people who've been here longer.
Mhm.
That are now, to your point, that gap becomes much, much smaller. And I think you're always gonna then, I hope then, if we're gonna do that now, that those folks are looked at again.
Right. Sure.
Unfortunately, a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever that is, because you will lose people then at your next round.
Right, at the next level.
I agree with you, because I remember when you pointed that there were some people, but on the, as a person who'd been there a long time, I also all of a sudden had reliable people working with me, which made me incredibly happy and less crazy. So like, yes, I agree with that, but I feel like if we look.
Only slightly less.
Right, slightly. But like, yes, I get it.
Yeah. And I think to your point too, Chris, I think the other thing we're struggling with right now is because we've had to hire some of those actually higher too. At the midpoint, not the minimum, there's been some people frustrated that when I started 5 years ago, I was only getting this and now you're starting. And so we've already heard a little frustration of that just to get them hired too.
And I feel like those mid people have to pick up the slack when those positions are empty or when they turn over, they're the ones who have to train them, like, that gets tiring too.
I mean, our job is to look at the budgetary piece of it.
Yeah.
I just think
I know.
from an operations standpoint, you guys are in a thankless spot with
Yep.
this. So,
We went back and forth quite a bit on
Right.
what can you do to accommodate some of those, like over time, as we review the performance of things, so yeah.
You're right. It's not an easy thing, which is why doing a pay plan study sounds great, but it isn't always my favorite thing to do.
for sure.
Because you're right, it doesn't necessarily make everybody happy, but.
But you know what could contribute to that, Chris? Is thank you cards.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say.
No,
splash
that's.
Play discount
And
to
a
the
splash
splash
pad.
pad. And a splash pad.
That's why it's bad, skating.
Get the free useful splash.
I think the bingo sounds like fun. Bingo. Perfect. Kelly's the host. But bingo.
you have the direction for? I think for now to put it in the budget, but everyone understands, yes, yeah, okay, I think that's what I got, right? Channel 15. So I know this has been kind of some off and on conversations, as everyone knows, we were notified about CFU and about their cable TV service, so we have had multiple conversations. I'd say the mayor, myself, Denny, Julie, just where are we kind of at with Channel 15? And some of you, I've probably just had my own conversations with you, or the mayor has, is there just a general feel for, do we want to continue something with Channel 15?
Yes.
Whatever that is, an app or whatever. And, okay, we're done. Move on.
Thank you all for your input, Denny.
Denny's I sat through 2 whole meetings for 2 minutes.
More of that.
But I think generally that is what we felt like we heard is people are interested in providing something, whether it's an app, whatever it is. And I think tonight we weren't trying to get from everybody what's the exact, how does that look? I think we just wanted to make sure people want us to kind of continue to look at a streaming service. Denny's already done some of that work. We, the mayor, Wednesday will be asking.
Platform,
Yeah.
Is that?
your influencer platform.
Yeah.
We did send a request letter to CFU asking them to help fund that. So Mayor will be making a plea for that.
Presentation.
A present, oh, that's what
How
that
long?
presentation, okay.
What was that? For
Initially,
funding, so we'll be presenting to them to request, what we requested was 5 years of funding. Starts, what is it for this current year?
Yeah, like calendar year 2026.
Yeah, so for this current calendar year, to maintain that amount of funding regardless of where, because they will still have channel 15 and cable this year. But they'll be offloading memberships, so 400,000 for this year, which is a little bit lower than what we've gotten in the past. And then I can't remember the step downs.
I think we had
each year.
400, 300, 200,
250.
200, maybe something like
But it
that.
gets down to 200 in the
Right.
last year, and we told them potentially then that there might be an ongoing request. But especially since we've got the Iowa High School Athletic Association football contract for
Yeah.
5 years, we wanted to time it up and say, hey, we'd like to work with you guys over a 5-year period so that we can have a reliable funding mechanism while we transition the business model to more of a self-sustained model. And so I'll be presenting that Wednesday to their board of trustees.
So I
We
think,
won't have an answer at that meeting, but
Right.
it's to start the conversation and kind of talk through with them some of their questions.
and I think some of the conversations we've had is just identifying who are other partners, you know, besides CFU, is there other partners who, because we may be doing some of the things on Channel 15, would they be interested in kind of partnering, you know, with us too, being partners? So also, we know we're gonna have to kind of decide, again, not tonight, but how is that distribution of the content gonna look? You know, is it a Channel 15 streaming app? We also understand, what are we gonna do about subscription fees? You know, I think generally I've heard that I think most people feel like council meetings and school board meetings should be free, that I shouldn't have to pay to see those. I think that's general feedback we've been hearing from people. But can we do, then you can pay a fee for some premium content, like you can get the public meetings for free, but you could pay to get everything else. So, you know, I think we kind of go back and forth about what we think about the fee. I think sometimes we think, oh yeah, why wouldn't we charge a fee? You know, people maybe say, yeah, sure, I'm willing to pay $5 a month or whatever to see some of that. On the flip side, I think we also understand, would there be things that people would be more willing to donate or sponsor if they know there's a wide number of people who are having the app? If it's free, you know, so I mean, are those kind of offsetting, you know, the fees we could get, but we're offsetting, maybe we could get more sponsorships for some of the sporting things because more people have it because it's free and they have to pay. So I think those are just the things we're trying to offset. So again, I don't think it's deciding all tonight. I think it was more just a, hey, is that kind of just generally, or did people have a strong opinion that yes, absolutely should charge a fee or absolutely should not charge an app fee? So if anyone has any strong opinions, feel free. But
I don't have a strong opinion. I appreciate the thinking of it.
Yes.
Because to me, I just think like, yeah, I'll pay, I mean, I pay $5 a month donation to PBS and I get the app and I can watch whatever I want, anytime I want. And I like that. But I get what you're saying. So I appreciate
yeah,
the thought.
would people be more interested in that? So one of the things that we've tried to put together on the next slide is just a little bit of a budget or a business model is the expenses on the left are less than what our current budget has been. But I think Denny just kind of worked on what would kind of be the bare minimum, because on one hand, maybe there's less equipment we need, but we also know we might have to pay a subscription fee to, you know, an app provider, you know, subscribe to some. So, you know, there are some things that kind of offset in there. On the right, we kind of just threw in, what might it take then to support a budget of that? I just put the 200,000 for CFU, where just talk about scaling that down. But we know we have football playoff revenue. Are there other community partners to come up with another 100,000? Again, whether that's the school, because we're doing games and school board meetings. You know, is there you and I, is it Community Main Street, you know, just some of those other partners? Would we charge some application, you know, app fees? And I don't know if that's right, by the way, $50, I just put in $50 and, you know, a year. And right now, I think there's 4,000 cable subscribers, you know, they said they had, so that's why I just used 4,000 and just. Again, I understand not all of them are gonna do it, but I also understand there's people who have already moved away from cable who might be, oh yeah, I'd get the app and pay something for that, so. We probably know we'd have to use little cable TV reserves. And might there be some general fund support? Maybe that's the other thing we just wanted to kind of, we don't want to hide that as part of this is. That might be something that also comes along, you know, if CFU says no, if we don't decide to charge a fee, whatever that is, you know, but it was just kind of give it an idea and kind of get a full, you know, again, some direction from council. We're not asking to support the entire 600,000 by the general fund, but is council okay with budgeting that if we had to support some from the general fund for the app? Is that okay, or do we really need it to all be self-sufficient? That would be the goal, by the way. That's what our goal would be, is to have it be fees and sponsorships and everything 100% pay. I think we just don't know at this point when we don't know how many people will be interested.
I think right now, I think we should support it.
I do too. I actually think it will pay for itself. Is there any consideration for just burying like $3 in everybody's CFU bill?
So we are actually.
We're asking that question. Yeah.
So first, we have to have lawyers to ask that question.
Right.
Because there's some utilities are regulated and
Mhm.
what we can do is, but we are having our lawyers look into, our lawyers, Kevin, look into our lawyers.
So good as plural.
So good as plural.
Calling you Kevin.
It's a law from
Yeah.
Kevin Rogers.
So that will be part of my conversation with them is, speaking of as a business, they have our entire customer list, CFU does.
Right.
And so if we could ask them like, hey, can you put an optional check on your bill? I would like $3 a month to go to a local media fund to support. Can we even do something like that? And that way we can partner with CFU to maybe say, hey, we might not even need you to give us money out of your budget. If we can somehow just tap
Say
into.
that then.
Well,
There was other stuff in my CFU bill. I don't know where it
Don't say streetlighting, don't say.
Another $3
Don't say
can
every one of those.
Yeah.
Makes a difference.
Yeah, well, honestly, like we figured $1 a month probably per household could probably cover the cost.
Yes.
So again, it's one of those, is there a way for us to maybe tap into our customer base of CFU to even just on a goodwill basis, generate a good amount of revenue for them? So that's something we'll be talking with them on. Is there a way to partner with them as a marketing partner?
Yeah.
And we're actually asking both questions. One, can you just add a fee on? Or two, can you ask the voluntary?
Sure.
fee? I mean, we're actually asking both questions to Kevin's.
Because people love having CFU be one bill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I'd be much more likely if it just showed up versus having to do a separate activity to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to initiate, just from a.
Right.
And this is unrelated, sort of related. Out of curiosity, I just would wonder how for all of the like promotional content that gets created, like I wonder how much other cities spend on marketing or like hiring a company to shoot their promo video for their new river project.
Right.
I wonder how much that
Right.
costs compared to what we spend.
Because there would be, if we didn't have the Channel 15 team, we would have expenses.
Right.
Or, so for example, our city awards that we do, the business and industry awards, we would have to pay a marketing firm to create the videos for that.
Right.
Denny and his team do it. So that'd probably be $3,000 I'll just throw out, just to have.
Actually,
It's just kind of live per video.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's just having all the content already.
Wishful thinking there.
Well, and I think that's why just having a little general fund support, we understand. Again, the team works a lot with Amanda, our communication things, teaming up on
Right.
doing those promos. I think they've already talked about, is there more they could do to do some of that? I think what's gonna be a little bit of the hard part for us is, you know, to get people to want to have the app, you gotta have material. And so now you gotta spend money, staff,
Yeah.
doing that to fill it up, so people wanna do it, to get, you know, that's the hard part of the balancing part. That's why I think some of why I didn't feel guilty asking CFU to have a higher amount and then go down, because I feel like that gives us then that, our reasoning for that is that gives us time to help build it up.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
you can't just, everyone's not gonna just sign up the first day, but we gotta kind of build it up. And what is it gonna take to do that? How many will be interested?
Build Danny as an influencer.
Well, also, this will be a little bit of shift too, because at this point, it's channel 15, it's the channel. This would really, and this is something we've been talking about anyways, how do we make channel 15 more of a media asset, a communication asset in the city? I would be excited about the app simply because right now, we don't have that good connection with residents through any other platform. Like, we have the city app, but no one uses it.
We have a we have a non-existent, we don't have a newspaper. I mean, it's
Yeah,
pretty
right.
important, like, that's the way I look at it too.
So long term, I think beyond just the doing what we're doing now, if we had a bigger subscriber base of residents that we could more easily get content to and
Right, gotta start
update on
building the
upcoming
podcast.
projects, and I think it would just give us a tool we can use to better engage with residents, knowing we can't depend on our traditional news outlets like we could in the past to get information out there.
I see this as nothing but an opportunity for us to better that communication. And I do think that I do think people would pay a small subscription fee to do it. And I also think, remember, the app, you don't have to live in Iowa to get the app.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Expats that want to see what's going on
Yeah.
back in Cedar Falls, and then if it's $5 a month, they'll pay it. And, so I think that we'll have a much larger subscription base. But
Like, they want to see videos of the kids playing in the splash pad.
that's exactly right.
And the hockey.
And then on
And
the,
not
then on
gonna be-
the ice rink.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you said as far as content, you talked about content on the website. Content on this probably will get more traction than the website.
Yeah.
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 Or YouTube or Facebook or whatever you're doing. It just comes at you. And you might stay there and watch it, and watch all the programs that are going on that Cedar Falls is trying to do or talking about. I know you get crammed with so much information because it's there and you get caught up looking at it and just over and over and over. And it'd be a great site to have those issues up there.
I
They'll
think,
probably take over TikTok.
I think our,
Number one web traffic on CFU internet.
It's a high bar, we gotta get better than.
Danny, that's your goal. We get this going.
Well, Jeremy's already on TikTok.
We're gonna beat Netflix for number one data streaming.
we're gonna be this.
Inspiring. Warner Brothers.
Yeah, maybe Warner Brothers. We
Yeah,
can hire Warner Brothers.
Okay, we have
I don't know.
a few minutes left, we wanna talk about RAGBRAI at least? We can at least talk about RAGBRAI.
Okay, all right, just don't want my car stopping all of a sudden, I don't get to keep talking. Okay. All right, so RAGBRAI. So we're really proud to have reported back when we did a committee meeting that, we had about 71,000 in excess funds. That is just great. You know, we were worried the whole time. I don't think Jennifer was ever worried. No. But at that committee meeting, when we gave the report out, we feel that we heard consensus about reinvesting in Gateway Park and the downtown, supporting them through some of the funding to a kiosk because they were a major partner in making RAGBRAI happen. What I think the group said, let's talk in goal setting a little bit more about was our staff recommendation to put 25,000 of that in reserves for a future RAGBRAI. We recommend that as a safety net. We are concerned about what the future might hold. We know that RAGBRAI wants to come more often to Cedar Falls. Instead of in 10 years, they want to be here in 3 years. We said maybe 5. But anyway, knowing that they are going to make more frequent asks to be here, well, that might impact the excitement about a sponsorship or the level of a sponsorship. It's not that unique anymore, so it might be harder to get some of those. We don't know if RAGBRAI's level of support will stay at the 50,000 that it was this year. That could be lower. We don't know. We kept expenses low. We have things that we can reuse, but we're always going to have some expenses. We had to rent the stage, we had the transportation, we had the marketing, and a lot of other weird things. So we'll keep those to a minimum, the bands, the entertainment, but those always add up on you. And then, the event success, we had great success this time, right? We had great weather. It could have been Iowa Falls the night before. And then businesses aren't so excited about being a sponsor the next time because, last time it didn't go so well. So those are the reasons that we recommend putting that amount into reserves to add on to the 5,000 that we currently have in reserves. What you all might recall is that we did have a request from a community member about using some of the RAGBRAI funds to help with some signage of the bike network. And I'm going to turn it over to Chase if I don't put you too much on the spot, because you kind of prepared this slide to maybe talk about how we see that could be accomplished without RAGBRAI funds.
Map's hard to see off to the right there, but we had an updated network plan that went through the Bike and Ped Committee a few years back. It does identify specific streets that will have what I would call shared lane markings, and you can delineate them multiple different ways by paint on the street with no signs, or paint and signs, or just signs. Over the years, it's transferred back and forth what ideally people prefer. Signage, if there's parking on the street, sometimes signage is hard to see, so people want the paint on the road, or vice versa. People like to see the signs rather than the paint. So the request was from, I believe, the Cedar Valley Trails Partnership.
And the Bike Ped Commission, yep.
But they would prefer to see this updated signage where it says bike route and may use full lane, kind of on the same post. We identified the streets that would be on based upon the approved bike network plan. You can see a little zoomed in sketch of that. Each dot would represent each direction of traffic. So each dot would be 2 signs, one for each direction of traffic. Obviously, we didn't want to put them every block. It'd be sign pollution and people would kind of just get over that amount of signage and kind of disregard them at that point. But we did present it to the Bike and Ped Committee. They were super excited that we could implement all of these signs in the next 2 years. It does total to be about $30,000, so we spread it over 2 years of $15,000 a year to kind of jumpstart the additional signage as it pertains to the bike network plan. They were super excited. And they're filling Roger's request when he was at the meeting, and it is street construction fund, but for those of you who don't know, it's really road use taxes, it's that for it.
And we already had last year in the CIP, Chase, right, some dollars every
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, we had 5,000 each year, so it'd be changing from 5,000 to 15,000 for those first 2 years.
So the question is council direction about putting the 25,000 in tourism reserves for RAGBRAI and handling the signage in the manner Chase described.
Yep. Okay. And on that note, we can probably,